is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Jeremy Lee in the building and every guest that you ever needed. Sports cards after hours keep the hobby heated. Updates, hobby talk like you've never seen it. Sports cards live and none could ever beat it. Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Welcome to another episode of Sports Cards Live with your host, Jeremy Lee.
All right, everybody, what is up? Welcome back to episode 281 of Sports Cards Live. It is Saturday night, August the 30th, 2025. My name is Jeremy Lee. A few quick announcements before we dive in. Note, Fanatics Collect weekly auction ending watch party tomorrow night. And I regret to inform you, no SCL next week. We have an event to go to, so we'll be taking the weekend off next Saturday, guys. But perhaps I will go live late. Maybe I'll go live very late next Saturday after I get home from the event. We will see. Stay tuned for that. 90s Auctions Showcase Live was just on Tuesday here live on the channel, and you can check that out. Their auction ends tomorrow night. 90sauctions.com. Co-founder Josh Adams should be joining us later tonight, and you can now find audio only versions of the auction shows on Sports Cards Live Auction Nights podcast. If you're thinking about adding a grail to your collection, check out Fund Your Cards, the hobby's top consolidator. They'll help you finance the purchase of your grail using your own cards. Visit fundyourcards.com. Check out their proprietary platform. Mint Inc. is the hobby's leading hobby experience in Canada. Visit their Toronto store in Vaughan or shop online at mintinc.ca with worldwide shipping. They offer live stream shopping, auctions, breaks, grading, and more. And GP Sports Cards is your go-to for hockey breaks every Wednesday and Friday right here on YouTube. Visit GP Sports Cards for breaks and product drops. And guys, for real time sports data, check out Rolling Insights. Their data feeds power major platforms and give fantasy players and businesses a real edge. No more spreadsheets. Visit rolling-insights.com. I'm so grateful for all these sponsors, guys. Chronosio now offers flexible pricing, so you only pay for what you need. Try the new pricing slider or save with their annual plan. Pay for 10 months, get 12. Start managing your collection smarter at home.chronosio with a K.com. That's their orange logo right up over there. And if you want to sell your cards on eBay but want to skip the hassle, message me on Instagram or email me, jeremy@slabsharks.com, and I'll help you consign with Slab Sharks. And don't forget, this show is also available on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow for free. And if you're enjoying the content, please leave a rating or review. It really does help. Huge thanks to all of our loyal viewers and podcast listeners. If you haven't yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, please take a moment to do so. And as always, your comments and your questions are in play. And with that, let's bring out none other than Mr. Joe Poirot from Santa Cruz. Joe Poirot, what is going on, buddy? How are you?
I am well, Jay Lee. How are you doing up there in Canada?
I'm doing good, buddy. I'm doing good. It's been a bit of a whirlwind evening. We had a birthday party to go to. A buddy was celebrating his 40th, so I went for about 15 minutes and came home, and here we are right into the thick of things. I'm excited. We missed you last week on the show. You've been busy. When's the last time you were on? Is it 2 weeks ago, or when was it even?
I think the last time I was on was right when you got back from the National. So, and then there was like a hiatus because you were at the National. So it's really been like one show in the last month. So it's great to be back. It's great to see the names in the chat. Welcome, chat. Let's have a great Saturday night.
Well, let's do that. Let's say hello to the chat. We've got Studio Sports. He said, excited for the episode. Are you priced out? It's a great topic in relation to the rise of the tide for GOATs across all sports, which also happens to be most hobby collectors' favorite players to PC. He's right about that, isn't it? Oh, and I look at that. You see that card see that card right there? Right there. He got that from me. That I sold that card to Studio Sports. That's a great card. Good to see you, Studio Sports. Dino says, love the show. Jeremy should have 1 million subscribers. Give me 1 million. We'll take them. Laura, good evening. Good to see you. Jacob Dahl, Phil Niekro fan. What's going on? Larry Gitlin. Southern Tony is here. What's up, Tony? Studio says, first live in a long time. I know. Yeah, well, welcome back. Mookie, what's up, Mook? Midlife Greg. Greg, I did get your text. I haven't written back to you, but I forget what you asked me. Oh, yeah, I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you tomorrow, buddy. Ken Wood, what's going on? Todd McDonald, welcome. Good to see you. Robert Scott, good to see so many friends here in the chat. Skeppy, What's going down? Double D Dylan, good to see you as well. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Cards Mo, what's going on? Sam Hill. If Mangini is the president of the hobby, then Jay Lee is the prime minister. We got the Pope right over here. We are stacked with luminaries right now. Chris Hayes, mid-80s babies, do be the best. Plus, we get all the 90s MJs. Let's go. Retro 80s reseller. What's going on? Yeah, man, Mo. Jeremy, you got to share your secrets of how to get out of party in 15 minutes. You pull a Houdini, buddy. You pull the old Houdini. Actually, I'm lucky. The guy whose birthday party it was tonight knows exactly what I do and is a great supporter. So happy for that. What's up, Linda's first? Good to see you. Fourth, the game. Paul, Joe, how you doing? Great night tonight, gents. Good to see you. Fourth, for the game. Yeah. So last week's show, Joe, it was a lot of fun because coincidentally, I guess the Heritage auction was ending and we followed the closing, the sale of the big Dual Logoman, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan Exquisite card. You know, when the show started, it was at $7 million. By the time it ended, it's at $13 million, basically. You weren't here on the show with us, but you must have some thoughts. What do you think that all means? What's on your mind when it comes to that sale, if anything?
Well, first of all, I mean, I was sad when I watched it on Rewind because it was a historical episode of Sports Cards Live, and you guys, Hoj and Brent with the Poirot Brent did a great job, I thought, and I was impressed with your guys's live reporting on the scene. My perspective, I mean, it's interesting, and I think I'm still processing it. I'm still kind of taking in some of the various responses from our content creators, and I think it is a good thing, and it's exciting to me as someone that dabbles in the modern and ultra modern, and I'm of the belief that it is a special card. I don't know if it's a 13 million special card or 12 million special card, but it's a special card. And, the reveal of the purchasers and the sort of partnership that emerged, I think that's an interesting component, of a fractionalization 2.0, as we recall and remember in the boom. That was something, and of course, this is a different iteration of it. So just a lot of angles and really still processing. How about you? What are your thoughts on the sale?
Well, I've thought about it quite a bit. And, it was, 2 or 3 days later that the owners revealed themselves, being obviously Kevin O'Leary, also known as Mr. Wonderful, Shine 150, who Kevin O'Leary said is like the top collector in the world or something. I didn't know that, but congrats to Shine if he is the top collector in the world, whatever that means. I think that would just mean the most valuable collection, but I don't know if that's true or not. But if he is, that's cool. Go Shine. And then you start thinking about the price. You start thinking about, first of all, it's really interesting. Historically, the record holding top publicly sold sports card of all time has always been of a dead guy. First of all, and it's always been a vintage card. It's either been it's always been Honus Wagner pretty much, right? Or maybe a 52 Topps Mickey Mantle, which we've seen recently,
right? At
12.6. So you ask yourself a couple questions. First of all, like you said, is this a $13 million card? You ask yourself that. And then you ask yourself too, it's like, what does it mean to the hobby that now it's a modern card that holds the title? Like I think that's a big deal. But you go back to the price. Like, what's the motivation to pay $13 million for this card? And then you hear Kevin O'Leary, welcome to the hobby, Kevin, by the way, who I think he said he's been researching it for 3 years. Yeah, he may as well wave to Mr. O'Leary.
Yeah, congratulations.
You hear him say that, he'll handle the card once, will never be sold in his lifetime. And then you kind of wonder, did they want to set the record? Which I kind of think maybe they wanted to pay over 12.6 to break the record of the SGC 9.5 Mickey Mantle. And then you ask, what's the motivations for wanting to do that? And that's where I think you see some narratives and theories come into play, some skepticism. Is this like, you know, it does remind me of the run up during the pandemic. It reminds me of the pump and dumps that we saw back then. It feels like a pump and dump. I'm not saying they're going to dump anything, and I don't know if they're pumping, but they pumped up the price of that auction, but someone else had to also, right? There was also somebody else, and we don't know. I don't know who that was. They know who that. I don't know if the buyers know or the auction house would know, and obviously the underbidder knows. But you wonder if there's anything unscrupulous going on. Is there market manipulation going on? And I don't know. I mean, I'm a little hesitant to say out loud my true thoughts on this because I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to share a theory that is going to be wrong or what my thoughts are and think it's wrong. But yeah, you know, I pride myself on being honest with the audience. So I don't know. I don't know, but I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical of what's really going on here. I mean, I don't think Kevin O'Leary is a collector. I don't think collectors want to hold their cards, you know, unless you live on the beach and you can't because of climate conditions. Collectors want to hold their cards. Investors, for the most part, are happy to use. And I mean, listen, I'm making sweeping generalizations here, but as a collector, and I'm projecting, which, you know, we know, as a collector, I like to hold my cards. Go ahead, jump in.
Yeah, no, I mean, everything you're saying is a good diving off point. I wonder if other ways of understanding this are that the sale going as high as it did was perfectly fine with the eventual winners of the auction, in so much as it draws attention. Greg mentioned in the chat, like, you know, the PR involved with that, but above and beyond PR, it creates an even, you know, frothier market, as the term that's been bandied around a lot lately. And if you have other assets, you know, if indeed they're true about not flipping it anytime soon, or 10 years or lifetime, whatever, there are other cards, and I'd imagine Shine has quite a few of those high-end logo man type cards, or actual logo man with the J. I feel like I've seen him holding some, you know, just bomber banger exquisites from time to time. And, you know, it invites the question, and, you know, I don't know, I don't play in these waters, but does a you know, rising tide lift all boats? And maybe not all boats, maybe all boats, but especially the boats that are closer in the same class as the card that sold last Saturday night. So, you know, that's another theory, I suppose we could say, is that we wanted to, you know, an investor group wanted to create a splash in the market in such a way that the frothiness continued and created opportunities for other sales.
Yeah, I think the natural direction for the hobby's minds to go is, what other cards do they own? Secure, I think, is the name of their organization, their new syndicate company. So what other cards do they own? Does pumping this one up to 12.9 million, does that enhance the value or the perception of the value of their other cards for them, which would be sort of pump and dumpy? So, you know, the hobby doesn't like it. Now, I will say, whatever they've done so far, I don't think they've done anything illegal. I don't think that they've done anything fraud. As far as we know, we don't know who the underbidder was. So assuming the underbidder is a true third party bidder, aside from them and everybody else who might be a part of their crew, I don't think there's any fraud or anything illegal going on. But this is the hobby. This isn't the normal world. We have a set of sort of ethics and a set of etiquette standards that we seem to live by. And then the question doesn't matter if it's legal or illegal. Well, it doesn't matter if it's not illegal. If it's not illegal, it's not fraud. It doesn't really matter. The hobby is still going to say, well, this is still against what we stand for as a hobby. And we tend to try to look out for each other a lot of times. And this would not be doing that. So I don't know. I think Shine is a collector. I don't know him. I've only met him briefly once. It was like a 3-set. Hey, Jeremy, this is Matt. This is Jeremy. We shook hands and probably forgot about it. You know, that was at Fanatics Fest 2 years ago. And so I think he's a collector, but I don't really know. I have no idea what goes on in this guy's head. But I think he has like a 9-figure collection, you know, if you look at everything he has. So what's adding another $12 million card or a piece of it. So, but again, collecting, investing, if you're owning a piece of a card, I've seen a few people say you're not collecting when you own a piece of a card. That's an investment. I tend to agree. How do you collect with somebody who is not your blood relative? How do you collect with somebody who isn't your father, your son, your mother, your sister, your daughter, or a really close relative? I don't know. To me, that's not collecting. That is literally investing, which is fine. It's not illegal. Some hobbyists don't like it, but it's not illegal. So, so the question: what other cards does it enhance of theirs, if any?
I mean, if anything, it desensitizes us to some of these big numbers. I mean, the talk was, oh my God, the Caitlin Clark, immaculate 1 of 1 went for whatever it was, 660, 500 on the last premier auction night. Great job by you, Cajun, and Adam, by the way. But all of a sudden, 500K doesn't sound like that much, and I think that could be one of the takeaways here. Another takeaway that you led with out of the gates is that typically we have a vintage card standing in the catbird seat with regards to the highest ever paid, and that this ushers in the conversation of how are the high-end vintage card collectors feeling about this. Is there pride involved with who holds the mantle? Is there opportunity sensed? What will emerge from someone else's collection to outdo the Jordan Kobe logo man in the realm of vintage, pre-war, or otherwise?
Yeah. I mean, that to me is the most interesting thing about it. Is it's the first non-vintage card to have the crown. And our modern we in the hobby, there's tensions. Let's admit there's tensions between the modern collectors and the vintage collectors. They like to do this sometimes. And are the vintage collectors kind of feeling it? We'll get Leighton's thoughts on that when he comes on with us in about 12 minutes and see, what's the vintage community? What's he hearing from the vintage community? Are they offended? Are they upset? Are they sad? I mean, listen, I collect both. I think it's exciting. But then there's a question people are talking about in the chat. What's the card actually worth? Well, nobody knows what it's worth. I saw a post today on Instagram, somebody talking about, what's his name? The guy that has this, not Ken Kendrick, the other guy with a great vintage collection. His name's just escaping me. Marshall Fogel and his 52 tops mantle PSA 10. Someone said this, the headline very factually said this card is worth $25 to $30 million, something like that. I'm thinking to myself, really? Like, that? Like, is there number one, is there a comp to support that? And one comp is not a market, guys. One comp is not a market. So I don't know. We don't know what it's. People have said $6 million in the chat. Maybe that's what it would have sold for in the absence of the Shine Mr. Wonderful syndicate. Maybe it would have sold for that. But what's it really worth? I don't think it's worth 13 million because two people don't make a market either, I don't feel. And then finally, okay, no, I'll go back to you first.
Yeah, I was just going to say, how do we factor in the flex value that these collectors might feel? Like, to me, let's say it was a $7 million card and they paid upwards of $5 or $6 million to own the card, to be kind of the poster board of elite card purchasers of 2025, if not the whole decade. I mean, we talk about own appeal. We talk about the experience of owning a card. Like, I value that into my, pickups and collections. And if I do end up selling something and maybe I take a loss, I solace myself with the idea of, actually, hopefully I enjoyed this card for the time I had it. It doesn't always work out that way, but there might be that's a little bit more of an experience cost than merely just the asset itself, if that makes sense. And it looks like either I have computer problems or Jeremy has computer problems.
I think it's you, buddy. It's okay.
Sorry.
No worries. I'll take a second there. I want to talk about another piece of this, but we'll go to some comments first. Greg, been itching to hear what you guys think about the sale. Well, here we are. CL CLTLTL, a news alert, Jeremy Lee to join Mr. Wonderful Syndicate, but we'll leave after 15 minutes. That's smart one, Boozle. That's a smart comment there for sure. Okay, then Tony. Tony says, the next question is, does it count as a comp if it was only going to get up to around $7 million if it wasn't pumped up to 13? Okay, so here's the thing. I believe it's a comp. It's a comp. Absolutely, it's a comp because the ownership changed and it was a legitimate third-party transaction between the buying syndicate and the auction house. So, Tony, I think absolutely it is a comp, but it might not be a comp that is indicative of the market. So I believe it's an outlier. I think it's a one of one, really. So it's not like we're gonna compare it to anything else ever, but it's like a celebrity ultra wealthy purchase, which is a source of outliers in the whole comp set system. So I 100% believe it's a comp. I don't think you can argue it's not a comp, but is it a comp that anyone's ever gonna use to buy or sell any other card ever again? Well, maybe only this card itself when it's purchased by another ultra wealthy person who, buys things that are not really bought by regular people on a regular basis. So it's a comp, but it's a useless comp, really. I think useless, limited use comp is how I would put that. Does that make sense, Joe? What do you think? I think you're muted. Are you muted? You're muted.
I just said, yeah, it totally makes sense. It's in such a different stratosphere. So,
yeah, like Chris from Missouri here says, could they resell that card tomorrow and break even? Probably not. It was a bidding war. I don't know how many people were in that bidding war, but at least two. And sounds like the answer to that is no. Would be my thoughts. Deep Value, Brent says it's for sure a comp. Yeah, there's no way it isn't a comp, but is it a comp that comes with any weight? To some people, sure. Someone else said, here, where's the comment? Linda's first says it's worth 13 million to the people that bought it. Maybe not. I mean, have you never bought a card and felt like you overpaid for it? Maybe you paid more than you thought it was worth. I mean, I know I have, but I don't really worry about it. Pay $300 for a card that's maybe worth 250. I'm not going to sweat it, but you pay 13 million for a card that might have otherwise sold for 6 if you weren't in the bidding war. You might not feel it's worth it. I don't know, but they paid it and they seem to be happy. And I think that the impact is, I think it's going to have an impact, somewhat of an impact on some other cards. But I don't know that it impacts the whole market, but the watershed moment or the watershed aspect of it to me, Joe, is that it's a modern card holding the title now. That's kind of my thought on that. What do you think of the comp itself, though?
I will just speak out of my own perspective. I went and looked at 2007 Exquisites, see if there happened to be like a Jordan base card or a Kobe base card associated with it. I mean, I play in a little bit, not on a Joe Poirot level card from that year's Exquisite. So I don't think it's a relevant comp to me, but the sale and the magnitude of the sale and the splash that the sale made impacts a little bit of my curiosities about what else is available there that's in my lane, that's in my kind of stratosphere.
Well, so listen to this. Brent Deep Value says it's already having an impact. He's been flooded all weekend with messages about it and people wanting to invest more money. So, that's the thing, right? So some people will think it's great for the hobby because it's going to attract all this attention on mainstream media, which it has done. And that, maybe that rising tide lifts all boats will help all of our cards. Maybe it will. Other people say that, well, great. Now it's just going to artificially raise the prices of all the cards that I want to go buy. And we've seen it before. It may not be the motivations behind the purchase may not be pump and dump, but I think the effect could still be similar to what happens in a pump and dump sort of scheme, where all of a sudden we're going to see values go up. And if and when that excitement ever calms down, well, now you've got the downside. You know, you go up, you're gonna what goes up must come down. I've seen too many up and down cycles to not think that we're gonna stay high forever now, that the market isn't gonna come down at some point. The question is, how far down does it come?
Right. Yeah, I don't know, but I do think that there's more going on here than them simply thinking about the card as an asset. I would say there's the cost for the asset itself, and then there is the attention that they're getting and the experience that is unfolding for them as the owners and purchasers of this card. Just to make it a little more, I don't know, robust of the asset. It's the whole experience of acquiring the asset and holding the asset.
Yeah. Well, here, Hobby Hangout says, I may have missed it, but are they claiming to be collecting? Seems like a clear investment, like you mentioned. Why else use it to announce the creation of their high-end card investment group? Yeah, that's a great comment. I mean, I don't know. Well, I've heard Mr. Wonderful refer to Shine as a collector, and like something like the best collector there is, or the biggest collector. He's seems like Mr. Wonderful is very impressed with Shine. He's very impressed with Shine, and Shine seems to have all this great access to, you know, all the big names and athletes, and whether it's Tom Brady or Michael Rubin of Fanatics or Mr. Wonderful. He's definitely advising some high net worth people on how to deploy their capital into the hobby. So, yeah, you know what? That's the thing. Like we said, it's not illegal to spend $13 million on a card. It's not illegal to invest in the hobby. You are going to rub some hobbyists the wrong way, but guys, they don't care if they're rubbing anybody the wrong way. Everyone else is a peon to them. They don't give anything about us. So it doesn't really matter that way. The sports card short says, yes, it's a comp. It raises the market awareness for all, definitely. And Brent, Deep Value, mentioned that as well. Dan's Vintage says Heritage Auctions is a big winner in all this. Absolutely they are. And Robert Scott says, anytime a sale makes mainstream news, it can only be good for the hobby. Yeah, I think it comes down to what is good, right? Like, is good raising the prices of all our cards? It's also raising the prices to buy more cards. And a little bit later, we're going to bring Mike Zier on, and we're going to talk about being priced out of the hobby. And that's the other side of it. Like, if this is going to raise the price of basketball cards or ultra modern, it's going to raise the price of wax. It could price more people out than have already been priced out. I think that's a concern for some people. Do you see how do you see that, Joe? Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Yeah. And another thing that's sort of coming up in these conversations and dialogues is this, again, you know, kind of back to the dichotomy between modern or ultra modern and vintage, or, you know, early, you know, pre-war or whatever. And a lot of talk about manufactured scarcity, which is a term I've found challenging for myself, in so much as, you know, I think that's sort of code for some people. I mean, not with a 1914 Joe Jackson Cracker Jack, but if you're talking about a 55 Clemente where there's over 11,000 graded, and, you know, how many people are really holding a 9, maybe 3 people, like, I don't know. It gets into the grading world. It gets into the eye appeal world. There's just a lot of layers to this manufactured scarcity thing that gets kind of pulled like a card to dismiss what I think are more and more attractive cards to people that are coming in from the investment. And it's fine if you're an ultra, you know, a vintage collector. Maybe you want people to stay in that lane, the big money. But I don't know. I play in both worlds, not the high end world, but I play in the ultra modern, and I play very much in the vintage too. So I have this conversation a lot with myself. What do you think about the term manufactured scarcity, Jeremy?
I mean, to me, it's it's the world we live in modern and ultra modern. There's no other scarcity in the hobby anymore. So there's a cutoff between vintage and modern. Vintage is organic scarcity and modern is manufactured scarcity. It's just replaced it. It's the evolution. It's the maturing of the market or the industry. Again, remember, guys, it's not a hobby; it's an industry. We're a small sector of it that call ourselves the hobby. But yeah, so I'm okay with I love manufactured scarcity. I've got lots of manufactured scarcity cards in my collection, and I love them. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay. I collect it, and I believe it's true scarcity, even though it's not organic the way it used to be. These cards did not have to survive mothers throwing out their kids' sports cards and kids playing with them and them not having any value, so they just tossed them away. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, in this instance, like, I don't know this, but I think I heard that this is the only Logoman with an auto Logoman of both Jordan and Kobe, in which case, yeah, it's manufactured, but all the card companies and all the different releases had the opportunity to do that at some point. There's no to 10, there's no to 20, there's no to 50. This one is, very singular in its existence. There's very few comparable cards in that range. So, when people say it's manufactured scarcity, well, I mean, the card market has evolved. We've moved forward. There's been a developing production configuration of sets. This one happened to hit. And for reasons that we understand related to Kobe Bryant's passing, there ain't going to be any others. So go ahead and try and manufacture a Kobe on-card auto with a Logoman. That ain't happening. So, it's just kind of interesting. I find myself a little, I've been collecting vintage for 40 years, but I sometimes find the calling card of manufactured scarcity as a way to dismiss some of the gems, some of the truly exceptional cards in the modern market as a little disingenuous, because unless you are working in the realms of super rare, pre-war or, the high level mantle 10s, there's layers to all of the vintage scarcity.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, let's. I'm gonna run through a few comments, and then we're gonna bring Leighton on. Bobby Burrell says hobby versus card industry is what we see with this purchase, and I just said, this is an industry, guys. So Bobby's on it right there. I feel the same way. Chris Hayes says Mr. Wonderful is a salesman, 100%. And Turpin Forster says Kevin O'Leary has been wanting to get into sports cards. So these comments about him, if you ever watch Shark Tank, he says, I love the money. He does not hide the fact that he loves money. And I think that's what's motivating him here is money, not the love of the cardboard like it does for a bunch of us. TCG says it's a shield comp that was paid for. That's what that was. Well, sounds like TCG has inside information and knows the buyer, knows the seller, because I think TCG is really just telling us what he thinks it was. I don't, if you know for sure, let me know, because I'd be curious. Skeppy says, I forgot to ask what t-shirt tonight. This is the All-Star picture cards, bubblegum. This is a Reindeer Studios card from Scott, bought at the Vintage Trade Night at the National, posted by 4 collectors. Card Fuchsia says, is grade scarcity manufactured? I'll throw a what's it called? Not a fastball. What's it called? I'll throw an outside pitch to you. I'm thinking like a curveball.
High and hard.
Curveball. I'll throw a curveball to you, Card Fuchsias. No, grade scarcity is grade scarcity. That's what it is. You got organic scarcity, you've got manufactured scarcity, and you've got grade scarcity. It is what it is. And Terp says the hobby is a rolling beast. No one can stop its progress. It's just finally catching on to people who understand assets that have a lot of money. That could be it too, right there. So, okay, let's bring Leighton on. Leighton, you good to go? All right. Leighton, welcome back, buddy. Good to see you. How are you?
Great. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing awesome, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you guys as well.
So you've heard what we've been chatting about for a bit, and missed you the last couple of weeks. It's good to have you back, Leighton.
Yeah, it's great to be back.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on this? You've heard us sort of talking about any issue, any impact this has on vintage, and the fact that a vintage card no longer holds the world record for the most paid for a card at public auction. What do you think? How does the vintage community feel about this from your perspective?
Well, you're talking about the Kobe and the MJ card, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I just want to clarify. So, it's not exactly what you asked, but Joe was alluding to this. And I wouldn't say that I'm going to the dark side, but it has opened my eyes as, at the very least, to pay attention to whatever kind of scarcity it is. I don't care if it's manufactured. I don't care if it's grade scarcity. I don't care if it's organic scarcity, your grandma's scarcity. It doesn't really matter to me. Um, at the very least, when people are starting to pay real money or what appears to be substantial money, it would behoove all of us to at least look, right? That's how you learn. But to try to answer your question directly, as much as that sale was super impressive, there was a number of other impressive sales in that auction. And I think that we would be literally in the same place if not for the acceleration that came from not only the purchase of the $12.9 million card in the record, but all the press. So I think that we would end up in the same spot because the hobby is on fire, whether it be that card sold for 12.9 something million or not. I think that the impact on vintage is the same or similar to the rest of the market. It's bringing in people with substantial wealth and the ability to invest in whatever you want to call this space, an asset class, a hobby, or anything and everything in between. But I think we would be here anyway. It just might take a little bit longer. Things have been on fire for us since the National, and I think many others as well.
Yeah, you know what my concern is, Leighton and Joe and everybody out there in SCL land tonight is that, and I said it earlier, I think, but my concern is that this just feels to me a lot like when I was sitting in my old house in the old Sports Cards Live studio doing the show, and in late 2020, well, mid 2020, late early 2021, February 2021, we saw Golden sell those two Jordans for 720K in one night, and then Ken said he sold two more for 720 also that night. I mean, that was the peak. And I remember my headspace at that time was like, oh my God, this hobby's amazing. We're reaching new levels. We're never gonna go back to where we were. And I don't think we've gone back to where we were pre-pandemic, but we flirted with it, a year or so ago, and now we're flying high again. So I just feel like, post-pandemic, things came back to reality, came back down to earth. A lot of people lost a lot of money investing in sports cards. A lot of it was because they were influenced by a lot of people with a lot of money spending that money on all the cards. So I'm concerned that people are going to take this news and get in over their head and maybe take some big losses that they can't afford down the road. I hope I'm wrong, guys. Leighton, I hope I'm wrong. I hope that this is a sign that the hobby is permanently elevated from where it was before. But I feel like this is deja vu. This is what we were talking about 4 years ago, right here. And it's almost like we've come full circle back to this same bull market. And are we in a bubble? I don't know. And this card is kind of the poster child for today's market right now. And this isn't the only card. We've seen all these Jordan cards going just absolutely bonkers in the last year, and others as well. Wemby and Caitlin Clark and Shohei's and Ellie De La Cruz and all these prospects. Like, it just feels, I think Brent just said it here, feels frothy somewhere. He said, yeah, I'm with you. Feels super frothy. Return to collecting agrees. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting time we're in. And so those are my concerns. But with you, Leighton, I love vintage too. Like, we're both vintage guys. And I'm a little heartbroken that a vintage card doesn't hold the record anymore. But on the other side, on my modern side, I'm like, hey, this is kind of cool. The hobby is moving forward. I think it's a watershed moment. We'll see how long it lasts. So any thoughts on that, Joe?
I agree with everything you said. But I would just throw the asterisk in that I do think there is more wisdom overall in the current space. Anytime new money comes in, there's going to be some naivete. There's going to be potential for people to be taken advantage of. But I think as a whole, the floor or the middle ground of the hobby has improved in their sensibilities and their conscientiousness about how and when they push into a particular asset. Case in point, on Thursday night, a sale that really impressed me was the Barry Sanders Green PMG. That is a card that I think sold twice as much as it had ever sold before. And I think it's a great card. I think it's a fantastic card. It's a beautiful card aesthetically. And I think it's the kind of card that has iconic status moving forward. And so the fact that it was paid double, you could say, well, that's a frothy market and that's not going to hold up. But I don't know. I kind of think that sale might hold up okay over time.
Well, the Dan Marino Essential Credentials out of 8 did not hold up. Just to throw sold for $108,000 1 month, and a few months later, I forget the time in between, 6 months, something like that, sold for $40K. Somebody took a huge beating on that one. So I hear what you're saying. It might hold up. It might hold up, but it might not. We can't really see the future. Leighton, Joe, you got anything before we go to Leighton?
I'm good.
What do you think, Leighton?
I mean, listen, there's a lot of action going on, but one of the things that we can do, Jeremy, for anyone watching the show that might be, a collector or someone who's looking to figure out what to do with their investments in cards. And I was joking with a fellow buddy of mine, but a collector earlier today. Guys, when we were younger, trying to sell cards to like the local card store, I remember fighting to get like 50 cents on the dollar. Okay. And now you're talking about collectors, not just their best stuff, but collectors can take like a $300 or $100 graded slab of vintage or modern and maybe get, let's just say 70, 80 or 90 cents on the dollar percentage. I don't know if that's going to last or not, but my suggestion, if you're not sure if it's going to last, is figure out anything that doesn't mean something to your collection long term and take the money now. Do whatever you want with the money. I'm not telling you to buy more cards. But I think that that's one of the ways to kind of guard against the insanity of what's happening. Because I can tell you something firsthand that happened to me, and I'm not going to let it happen again. That, let's say 3, 4, 5 years ago when things were running out from COVID, maybe I had like a Kobe Chrome rookie, and I don't know, because I'm embarrassed to say, but it was like the base 10 might have been like $20,000. It might have been less or more. I don't remember, but I remember it being obscene. I'm like, oh, just a little bit more,
Yeah.
And that never really works out well when you do that. And I just know that this time for me, even if it's a vintage card, but there's a huge profit to be unlocked, I'm not going to feel comfortable if it's on paper, if I have a goal of something different in mind. That goal might be a little island in Peru, right? I don't know. But whatever it is, I want to make sure, and I encourage everyone out there to do this. You don't have to put your whole collection in a spreadsheet, but have 2 tabs. The things you want to die with or keep for a long time, and then have everything else. And then if you're looking at the everything else, you're like, wait a minute. I remember, that's a good point Leighton made. I had this $200 card when I was a kid. I'd be lucky to get $110. And I got repackers that are offering me $170. Gang, sell. I'm not saying sell cards to me or Jeremy or Joe, but take the money and do whatever you would like with it as far as the hobby is concerned or your life is concerned, because that's one of the ways to take some risk off the table. There is no guarantees that in 3 months or 6 months or 12 months that there's going to be as much liquidity, there's going to be as much insanity, and are we going to be talking about, for whatever reason or another, right, that card, the Kobe and MJ card, has to be resold. I'm not saying it's going to be. I'm not trying to set any waves. But we don't know, right? There's no contractual obligation for that group to keep that card. What if they found another investment and they earmarked that money for that investment? Now, Kevin O'Leary doesn't strike me as someone who's going to be coming up short, but the point is we don't know what's going to happen. So just take your collection or your little neck of the woods and manage it with all this information the best possible way that you can for you.
Yeah, I'm with you. And but the problem I have with that advice, not against what you're saying, but I hesitate to take action based on one sale. And I'm not, and we're talking about the greater market. I know the whole market's frothing
No,
right
this
now.
isn't because of that one sale. This is
No.
more because of things are on fire from what I've seen from the National that is clearly going to at least go to the September Philly show and likely until the end of the year. And I heard the West Coast show at Burbank was insane.
So yeah, I mean, I hesitate to take action based on a group of sales, let's say, because, you know, like you said, I love the advice, manage your own collection, take the information you have, and, you know, you got to process it through your head and do a risk assessment for yourself. And it's been said in the chat, there's nothing wrong with taking a few chips off the table when times are good. You can get some money out of the hobby if you want. I think that's easier said than done, though. I think a lot of people, when the prices go up, they feel like they're going to keep going up, and they don't want to leave chips on the table by taking them off now. They don't want to leave that future growth. And I know, you know, just thinking back about myself during the earlier run up of this decade, man, oh man, if I would have sold a bunch of cards in, I don't know, late 2022 and bought them back now, I'd probably be sitting on a stack of money, a stack of money that I could be buying more cards with now, or whatever, paying, you know, putting it in the family account. So people, you know, it's easier said than done. It's similar to that, the issue that we have internally about, you know, I own a card, it's worth, say, $5,000. Well, would I go buy that card for $5,000 right now? And if the answer is no, well, then you should sell it. And that's really that's a, you know, that's a path forward that is really hard for me to get my head around for myself as a collector. It's like, well, that's not how it goes. You know, just because I have the card and I wouldn't buy it again for that money doesn't mean I'm going to sell it for that money. I have the card. There's other things at play, but that's kind of what that advice feels like to me. Does that resonate at all, Leighton?
You know, it does. I think to each their own, Jeremy. I think that you can make yourself crazy, right? You can slice things a lot of different ways. I'm trying to keep it basic because I don't really know who might be watching or who might be watching in a replay, but I mean this sincerely. I don't really believe that what we have going on now is going to last in perpetuity. I think that we're going to take some steps maybe up, and at some point, for whatever the reason is, it could be something out of our control, but we're absolutely going to take a step back. And all I'm simply saying is, I'm not telling you to take action, Jeremy, and sell your cards and buy more cards. But I do know this, I'm speaking from experience. I can look back at that run up of a few years ago and see where I did really well and I thrived. And in other cases, candidly, I was greedy, and I'm not going to do that in this particular situation. I'm going to make sure that if there's a card similar to what you're saying, right? Like, why did I need, I'm just making it up, why would I have needed $5,000 more to sell that Kobe Bryant card all those years ago? And that card, by the way, is much less than it was. And so I'm only sharing that because no one's impervious. And if you say that you are, you would actually be misleading. And so I'm just saying that for me, as much as I like celebrating my wins, I actually feel just as, you know, I felt so crappy looking at some of my losses through the years that's when business, at least, and I understand business versus collecting is different, but I try to use some of my business wisdom to guide my collection. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm making purchases. I just bought a Griffey Jr. to let the cat out of the bag. It's a modern card. I bought a Griffey Jr. Donruss Elite. It's the first year he had an Elite card. And for me as a kid, this is how crazy it was, Joe. I didn't believe the card existed. I didn't know anyone who pulled an Elite, let alone a Griffey. And when I first went to a card show, I think I remember like using a payphone to call my father. I'm like, Dad, I found this card. He's like, how much is it? Well, $560. He's like, well, you have $65. I'm like, so you're telling me you can't have it? He's like, no, you can get another 400 whatever dollars. So needless to say, I didn't get the card. I wanted it since I was a kid. It's numbered of 10,000. It's a PSA 10. Spent a couple grand. And instead of just spending a couple grand, Jeremy, just either recklessly or just because I wanted it, I made myself commit to what cards I would sell out of my collection to cash out, whether it be I was making money or not, to pay for that card. That's what I'm talking about. You don't necessarily have to sell for just the sake of having more in your war chest, but that card really resonated with me a lot. And that card maybe one day will be more, maybe it'll be less, but I know I love it at the price I purchased it at. And I didn't use money in the family account or in my card account. I literally used cards to fund it. And that felt great.
Yeah, that's always a good way to do it. Joe, any thoughts on this line of discussion?
Well, I'll just bring up a personal anecdote. I had somebody smash the bin on a card I had listed on my Fanatics, in the Fanatics realm. And, I'd played around with, some best offers. I had it listed, I think, right at the threshold of 120%, so I could do the 6% seller fee. Somebody bought outright. And it was for me, the expensive card, like, a $5K card for me. Immediately I was bummed. Like, I was like, oh no, I lost that card. Like, somebody wanted that enough to just smash the bin. And I reached out to Hoj and I said, Hoj, I sold this card and I'm kind of bummed. And I don't know what I need this $5,000 for, because all the cards that I'm interested in right now are going up so quickly that it's not like I'm gaining ground. If you have a target that's maybe not off, then great. If your eyes are on the very same things that everybody else is on, then the money that you're moving into, because you've gotten a good buy price. Sorry if my internet's doing wonky stuff. You got a good buy price, but then what are you going to do with that money? And if it's putting a new roof on your house, great. Like, that's a very good use. Or putting money into your kids' college. But if it's to buy other cards, you're not always going to have the opportunity that you imagined you would if the market's in the same place. So anyway, that's
okay, let's do a few comments here. Okay, guys, you good? Let's do it. Deep Value says rare and scarce Apex cards are an asset. Deal with it. Yeah, I think so. Jeff Will says every market, when it hits record, seems like a top, but you either believe in the hobby or you don't. The volatility is what gives you higher returns. You need volatility for higher returns. Yeah, it just depends what your angle is. Where do you fall on the collector to investor spectrum, really? Where are you on there? That's going to be a big part of it. But volatility is definitely going to help the people who are in and out of cards all the time. The collectovestors, even, I suppose. Turpin Forster says people are spending big money on sports cards in a bad economy. That should tell you what's going on. But then I think Brent said after, what bad economy? I don't sense a bad economy, but I guess the economy's always bad for some people, that's for sure. Chris Hayes says nobody cares about 90s football. You must be drinking the MK juice right there, Chris Hayes. Chris from Missouri, meanwhile, says no one has ever gone broke making a profit. That's just a good rule of thumb right there. And Deep Value says vintage people won't like that grade doesn't matter for the most expensive card in the world. And I don't know about that. I don't know if vintage people are going to be upset by that. I mean, I don't think they would be upset by that. Leighton, what do you think? Are vintage people going to be offended that the most expensive card in the world now is a PSA 6?
I think from the vintage folks that I chatted with just a little bit, they're probably more offended that it's a modern card and they wished it was a vintage card. But I don't know, for me, I just look at it as like the hobby's really, it's just expanding rapidly, and, teach their own, right? You can buy and enjoy whatever you like or invest in whatever you, think is a good thing to put your money in. I've heard it all, Jeremy. I do feel for the industry that if the most expensive card is a 6, it kind of makes people at least discuss it, and I think that's it. That's cool.
Yeah.
Like, hey, how did a card in a 6 sell for that much? Oh, well, it's because it was a 1 of 1 and blah blah blah. And, so it's not because it was a PSA 10.
And it's a 1 of 1. So
Yeah.
it kind of that somewhat explains why he could go for so much money and hold the record. Deep, that's what he said. LGC said it's good to have some liquidity now because FOMO will also bring out cards from closely held collections. That's a good point right there. Hockey Card Exchange says in 2021, and you still have lost your shirt. Not sure what you mean there. Colin, sorry. Texas says, evening, fellas, and fashionable day. What's up, Texas Rangers? Tropic Collects, good evening to you. 90s Auction says, 90s football is glorious. Chris Hayes says, I'm curious what people like Jeremy, etc., what the allocation of net worth are in their cards. I mean, mine's super high. Mine's probably the highest of anybody you know. I shouldn't say that. I don't know what everybody has, but mine is way more than recommend. I saw Kevin O'Leary say that he's allocating maybe 5% of his net worth into sports cards. And I'm like, well, more than that. I'm closer to put a 0 on the back of that for me, guys, if you want to know. And Return to Collecting says, I couldn't care less about the grade. Yeah, right on. Here. What do you think? Joe, any comments on any of that stuff?
I'm just sorry my internet's all wonky. At least it isn't your internet. Yeah, I mean, everyone's making good points. Leighton's wisdom, getting back to that, I think what you do is you assess those fringe cards that aren't deeply important to your collection. Now is a great time to review, to sort of conduct an audit and examine what you wouldn't really worry about losing, that's not too meaningful to you.
Yeah, right. And so I just want to go back to the net worth question for a second, if I may. Deep says 5% is boring. I mean, I agree. And Chris, you're welcome for me sharing. Mike Petty says 10% or less is my happy place for any one thing. Yeah, I've always felt like, I feel like my experience and just knowledge and gut feel for the hobby has been good to me for over 40 years now. And so I believe that, almost like the Warren Buffett way of investing in what you know. So am I an investor in sports cards? Absolutely I am. I don't make any bones about it. Am I a collector of sports cards? Absolutely I am. Don't make any bones about that either. I collect cards that I also invest in. That's easy. That's very easy to do. Anyone can do that if you want. So, but the key for me being so deep is that I'm very, speaking of deep value investor, I'm a deep value investor, Brent. I'm so deep into this, but I've very, very cautiously selected the cards that I'm invested in. And I feel very strongly about them. And I've always felt strongly about them, and they've done well. It's been, in the last 30 years, they've just consistently done well from a value perspective. And I've had to sell cards here and there, and I've lost. I mean, I sold a card the other day as part of my Joe Jackson consolidation. I sold the card. I bought this card in 2007. Bought it in 2007, I think, or maybe early 08. I paid 3,400 Canadian dollars for the card. Card just sold. I think I netted like 400 bucks Canadian. So I lost like 90% of my investment on this card. That kind of sucks. I'm just saying, I've had some big wins, but you also have the big losses to go along with them. And it's just the way it goes. So that was a card that I knew I was overpaying for at the time. But in any event, point being that, yeah, if you are going to be if you're going to be deep into sports cards or any one alternative asset as a component of your net worth, you better know as much as you can about it, I think. And I feel like I know a lot about cards, but I've made mistakes too. So what do you think, Leighton?
I'm glad that I have a good financial advisor to try to kind of temper, my love of the space. But I do agree with Warren Buffett in the sense of, if you're an expert in an area, I'll rely on, maybe diversifying certain portions, of course, of my portfolio, but understand I also make my living in this. So it's sometimes the lines are very blurred for me, which I don't mind because I love the space. But it is probably one of my hardest things because I can tell you, if you were a fly on the wall, like when I have my meeting with either my accountant or my financial advisor, he's like, so wait a minute, it's for your collection? I'm like, well, it's in the business. He goes, what does that mean? And it could take up some more time that we're not going to do tonight. So I'm trying to figure it all out. right? But at the end of the day, I do agree with that. What you were saying, Jeremy. My gut and my instinct has certainly served me well over time, but absolutely not impervious to losses. And anyone who tells you otherwise is definitely lying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, here, to collecting says spending a set percentage on an investment is different than having a certain percent of portfolio on an investment. If the value increases, it will increase percentage. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, absolutely. Agree with that for sure. Chris says Jeremy is a beast in this market. I don't know that I'm not a beast. I mean, I've been consistent, and I've been committed, and I've been passionate, and I just love these. I love these things. Like sometimes I wonder if I love it too much because it dominates my life. Can someone explain blackjack to me? Bob Boozle. Tyson says 10%. A couple other people said 10%. I think, yeah, Darren said 10% is a good round number. I think I saw Mike Petty. We saw that one already, but yeah, okay. Well, interesting stuff. Tony here said, I could care less if the most expensive card is modern or vintage, and he's a vintage guy for the most part. So nice to see a vintage guy not caring one way or the other. Yeah, I personally don't care either, although it does, nostalgic wise, it's kind of different. It just feels, it just hits a bit different. Leighton, does it hit a bit different for you, Leighton? It must a little bit.
I mean, it does at the same time, and I made a note of this before we came on. This is not anything else other than from my experience and from my heart. Part of the reason why I was never into like exquisite basketball, I know where I was in my life, right? I was just graduating college. I literally financed my way so that when I was done with school in 2000, I didn't have to get a job I was going to hate. And because of that, I couldn't buy $500 boxes of basketball cards. And I love basketball. I've been collecting vintage basketball for 25 years. But yet, for whatever reason or another, there were people that were able to enjoy it, etc. And so to me, I don't ever look at it, at least from that. Like, I feel a little bit different about, let's say, a card from 2023 versus 2003. And I'm not saying it's wrong from 2023 if it sells for a lot. But I remember collecting cards in 03 very well as a young guy. And yeah, I just didn't feel comfortable spending that kind of money. I thought the cards were cool. I think I bought a couple, like I'm a Larry Bird guy in my collection. It's the only reason why I have exquisite Larry Birds. But I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. And if you were able to ride that market and you're now either getting more Michael Jordan cards or more basketball cards, or you've parlayed some of that into vintage cards of your choice, I don't know. I don't begrudge it. And if I don't understand it, I tend to want to learn about it versus get mad and say, it's not for me.
I love that approach there. And we're going to go to Joe in a second, and then we're going to bring Mike on. But Chris says here, if you have 90% of your portfolio in cards, it would be wise if you marry well or still live with your mom. And so I don't have 90%, but I'm just thinking in my head about my overall picture, and yeah, I'm right close to 50%, and that comes in. Things change over time, but I'm right close to 50% of my overall like investments in sports cards, and I feel really good about it. I always have. One of the nice, and it's also it's very liquid, and it's cards. If you can go. You got to fix your roof for 40 grand, and you have a card you can sell for 40 grand. It's just nice to know that you can do that. So my point in this is that your cardboard can be assets. Some cards are assets for sure. Many can be, and it's nice. It's a nice feeling. It's a security. It's a feeling of security. Just like any asset can make you feel secure that if something comes up, you'll be able to meet your obligations. So that's where I fall with that. What's up, Curmudgeon? Welcome to the show. Okay. Yeah, that's what I want to say. Joe, what are you thinking on all this discourse?
Yeah, sorry, I kind of missed the whole percent of your net worth. I don't know. That would be very challenging for me, but it's above 10 and it's, below 50, somewhere in that range. Leighton, I just have one question for you that I'm sure you won't necessarily be able to answer, but it's a fun question to think about. And then I've got to beat it on down the line. If it is a vintage card that supplants the recent big sale, what could you see emerging onto the market? We've got the likely, candidates, I suppose, but I'm just curious if you have any wild cards potentially, or just a kind of take or an insight into what might emerge to supplant the Jordan Kobe logo man.
Great question, really, Joe. And I guess what comes to mind at first, even though I don't think they're going to be for sale, is the 52 Topps Mantle PSA 10. And the reason being is that there's 3 of them, not one. Listen, I don't know the financial makeup of these folks' portfolios. At least Ken Kendrick certainly seems well off, so does Marshall. But nonetheless, I think that card would certainly supplant it. I think that with all the controversy surrounding it, I think that the Wagner, if Ken decided to move on from the Wagner, that's great at PSA 8. I think if you call that card authentic or PSA 8, that would be an interesting question. If they change the card to authentic, would it still sell for as much? Many people would argue, both ways. But I think that card would definitely sell and break the record. I don't know the pop report for the Ruth rookies off the top of my head. However, I think that the top graded Ruth rookie would certainly give it a run for its money. And then quite candidly, depending on where the 52 Topps Mantle even PSA 9 market is, right? With the last SGC 9.5 selling for 12 and change. And then I interviewed Levi at the National about his 52 Topps Mantle PSA 9 that he used to own. I think there's 6 of those that are out there. I think there's a handful that could supplant it. And, who knows? There might be someone out there right now. I was thinking about this. I'm curious if you guys do the same thing. I believe there's someone out there who's saying, I have the card that could break the record. And even though I don't, quote unquote, need the money, I want to break the record with a vintage card. That I want to know. If you're listening out there, could you let us know with like a bat signal with the card and just give us a hint or something? Because that would be fun.
That would be fun for sure. Okay. Yeah, I love the question, Joe. What will be the next card to break the record if it is vintage? Will it be vintage? We will see. All right, Joe, are you got to take off?
I'm gonna pop off, but this has been incredibly fun. Sorry about my internet. Who will take the mantle? Will it be the Wagner? Will it be the mantle? Will it be some other? I like the Ruth rookie. That was one I wasn't thinking of. So be curious to see, and that's what's so exciting about the hobby. Like there's always a next development. So looking forward to it.
Sounds good. All right, Joe. Talk to you later, buddy. Thanks for good to have you back. We'll see you later.
Yep. Take care.
All right, buddy. All right. Before we bring Mike Zier on, which we're going to do shortly, Leighton, we're going to talk about being priced out of the hobby, whatever else Mike wants to talk about. Mike, we're going to bring you out. Give me a minute. I want to address 2 more comments here. First of all, DS says, the allocation, holy crap, wish you crazy card loves, best wishes. Why does everyone hate compound interest in mainstream finance? Well, I don't hate, I have investments in mainstream financial assets, but cards have always done better for me. They just do. They perform better. If you've been buying the right cards, I feel that. Why do I feel like we're low on the screen right now? This feels weird. But anyway, I don't hate mainstream finance, and sports cards have been good. And then Chris Hayes says, how much growth from cards have you experienced, Jeremy? Since we're critiquing your net worth, I bet you've gained quite a bit. Yeah, my if I just took the money that I put into cards and didn't revalue them at today's values, my net worth would be substantially lower. So, but the cards I have are, a lot of blue chip pieces. I collect them. I'm not a collector who spends money on cards and kisses that money goodbye. John Mangini in the chat, the president of the hobby, he does. Other people, I heard someone say that recently. I think he does, and that's fine. I love it. If that's how you can live, that's great. But to me, I do consider my cards to be that store of value, and that store of value has over the years been good to me. Yes, I lost $3,000 on a card last week, but I've had the gains to absorb that quite nicely. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay. It's okay. It's okay, I guess. So, but anyway, enough of that for now. Leighton, we're going to bring on Mike Zier. You get to stick around for a bit still?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Mike, I'm going to give me thumbs up if you're ready, Mike. He is ready, everybody. Please welcome Mike Zier to Sports Cards Live for the very first time. He misses cheap wax. Mike, it's good to have you. How are you? Long time since we chatted. What's going on, buddy?
Nothing. I appreciate being on. It's I've been watching since 2020, and it's great. Hi, Leighton. Good to see you. All right, and I don't make every show, but I get most of them. So I'm happy to be on.
It's that's really nice to hear, Mike. I appreciate you tuning in for so long, and so let's actually tell everybody kind of what brought you here tonight, because we didn't really know each other until we had an interaction on X probably a month ago now, if not a bit longer, where I made a post on Instagram Instagram and Twitter, or X, and we started kind of chatting about it, because I made my comment was, I don't remember it exactly, but it was something like, yeah, the hobby's expensive. If you're priced out, find another approach, find another way to the hobby. And I forget what you responded with, but we kind of, in a very, very respectful manner, had a bit of an exchange. Then we met here in the studio offline, not streaming or anything, and had a long discussion. We got to know each other and really understand each other's perspectives and where we're coming from. And I thought it'd be great to have you on to kind of get your thoughts on the hobby. So with that context laid down now, Leighton, we're going to take a minute and let Mike kind of explain Mike, where are you at in the hobby? How are you feeling about the hobby? Are you priced out of the hobby?
So first off, you triggered me. So that's what got this going, because I've been in the hobby since '85, and then you told me that I have to either adapt or get out. Are you crazy? Come on, that is just crazy talk. So since it's social media and you can just say whatever you want, it doesn't matter, right? So I responded to you, and then I got to thinking about what you said, and I'm like, remember when Leighton was talking about how he was selling his card for 50 cents and everything? Since those days, singles were always the way to go, right? Even back then, singles were always cheaper than, say, the 90 Leaf baseball pack or whatever, okay? And but I love opening wax, all right? And I'm old enough to remember when going to retail wax, that was junk wax, right? Like retail, just scratch an itch, and and then you could get a hobby box or whatever. And so I got upset, and I'm like, hey man, I've been in this hobby since 1985, and you're telling me to get out unless I change. And now I'm a teacher and a coach, so I tell people all the time that you have to change, you got to do this. But for you to tell me that, Jeremy, so that's where it started, and that's why we're here.
So I triggered you, I pissed you off, but I'm going to tell you, Mike, I stand by those words, and literally I'm going to ask you, what have you done? Are you still in the hobby today?
So I had a big summer. In fact, I had a lot of friends send me messages, thought maybe I was contemplating suicide. I sold my collection to Singles Club. They're at Nationals. They're actually close to I live in North Dakota, and they're from North Dakota. And so I sold everything but my Phillies, my Steelers, and Wild Card, the old Wild Card from the 90s, pre-bankruptcy, when they sold everything out the back door. And I've been in a really good place since then, because now I can just buy some wax, buy some singles. I kept all of them, and I did, though. I probably shouldn't have put it on X, because I had a lot of people worried about me, which is cool. It's good when people are worried about you, because Jeremy and Leighton, I'm one of these guys. I never got out of cards. I grew up in Montana. I took my cards with me to college in North Dakota. I took them to my first teaching job. I had a friend get a U-Haul in his pickup, and we drove across the state of North Dakota to my second job, where I've been for 26 years. So it was a big deal when the U-Haul showed up at the Zier household and loaded them up, and then eventually ended up at the Nationals. So I don't remember the question, Jeremy. Sorry, that's the way I go. I work with 8th graders, so I just kind of ramble a lot. Sorry, man.
That's all good. No, it's all good, buddy. No, the question was, are you still in the hobby? Because, like, again, how I triggered you was what I said was either adapt or get out of the hobby, because I don't know what your other choices are. Like, I wasn't trying to get you out of the hobby, obviously, Mike. I was just like, this is the reality. I'm a kind of a realist. I like to look at myself that way, and that I don't know what the other options are, because you and your friends on Twitter aren't powerful enough to move the mountain of the hobby right now. Nothing you do is going to bring down the price of wax. So what are your options? Literally, I don't know what your other options are other than adapt or just get out. Maybe take a break. Now I understand, and Mike, we're a lot alike. We grew up in the same era. We love this hobby. We don't want to get out, and so we want to find a way to stay in it, I think. And it can be very sad when you can't afford what you want to buy anymore. But I still don't know what the other options are. So what I asked you was, like, are you still in the hobby? And you're here with us tonight. And what does even in the hobby mean anymore? Does it mean buying regularly? Does it mean you own some cards, or can it just be a mental thing after you're selling your collection? But for you, are you still in the hobby today?
So what in the hobby means to me is, how often do you check eBay daily for cards? How often do you check ComC daily for cards? So yes, I am still in the hobby, although don't tell anyone I do it at work, okay? I'm grading papers. But the thing is, Jeremy, where the bitterness comes in, real quick, okay? Where the bitterness comes in, 2010, 2008, 2007, the guys on X, we're the ones who were carrying the card companies. Okay, when it wasn't cool, when it wasn't the thing to do, after the Anaheim card, nationals and all that card, crashed. And so that's the bitterness, but I have adapted. Okay, I'm a singles guy, and I'll pick up wax here and there. And that's the way I adapted. So I actually did take your words to heart. And I got over my triggerness, and life goes on. You got to. I agree with you. You got to adapt.
Well, not only, and Leighton, we're going to get you in this back in this 1 second, but Mike, the other thing was that we met privately, and we had a meeting of the minds, and we got on each other's sort of level, I think, and we're able to understand each other better. I didn't want to come at you, but I also was like, well, here's a dose of reality kind of thing, or at least my reality, which doesn't have to be yours or anybody else's, I suppose. Your comments about you and your friends, the crew on X, carrying the card companies. Another hard dose of my reality. They don't care. They don't care that you did that. And that's I think that bothers a lot of people, is that understanding that this is a capitalistic society. It's all about the money. It's all about shareholder value. And so they don't care. And then it's kind of like, if you like, so I know I need Greg here for the magic of analogies and metaphors and stuff, but I'm not going to even try, but I'm going to come back to my point. The fact that you bought something, and not you, Mike, but anybody bought something from somebody 10 years ago when they were going through trouble, and now they're not there to create a product that you can afford. It's just, yeah, that's the way it is. I come back to, they don't care. And I think people are realizing that the card companies, in many cases, they don't care. They don't need to sell cheap products. They're better off printing more expensive products and sending them to the breakers and letting the breakers get more money for them and going out that way. It's part of the reason why you say you love breaking wax. That's I don't know what to call it, but that's the kryptonite sort of thing, I think, because it is fun, but I stopped doing it a long time ago. Now, Mike, think about it before you respond. Let's go to Leighton. Leighton, you've heard a lot of what Mike has said. You've heard what I have said. You talk to people all the time in this hobby. It's what you do for a living. Where does your head and your heart go when you hear from someone like Mike and others who just, and most people, Mike is speaking for most people right now, by the way, who can't afford to spend, I can't either. I'm not saying $500 on a box of cards to maybe get $80 worth of cards I don't even want. What are your thoughts on this whole line of discussion, Leighton?
Well, listen, Mike, I really empathize with you and your friends that may be struggling as far as figuring out like how to buy, things that you enjoy. I think the best way to think about it is don't let the stuff own you, and make sure that you make choices in your life where you're in control versus where other things get a hold of you and are controlling you. And what I mean is, like, we don't have to hobby. And to be candid, I think that if you really wanted a hobby that badly, I've not been to a card store, my own included, or card show or a collector that doesn't have a free box of cards they give you if you're willing to sort. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm not saying to ask for charity, but what I mean is, listen, if I like a restaurant and the restaurant's really expensive and I don't have the budget to do that, I just don't go to that restaurant. I don't know if that's a good analogy or not, but what I'm saying is I understand how you can go to the National, and I'm just one of 1,000 dealers there, Mike. And in a lot of different ways, I could beat myself up and say, I don't have the most inventory. I'm not the biggest company. We don't have the most money. I can continue to go on and on, but I don't do that. I think about all the wonderful reasons why I am there and that I'm above ground and things I'm grateful for. And this maybe goes well beyond just collecting. This is your frame of mind every day. Like when you get up in the morning, I'm being honest, I don't know if you go for your phone or a piece of electronics, but if you do, I would stop. I would take the first 15 minutes of your day. And I don't want to sound all righteous, but I preach this and I do this in my own life, and it's made a big difference. Don't go to eBay first thing in the morning. Don't go to a TV screen. Don't go to your phone. Think about what you're grateful for from yesterday. Think about what you're grateful for today. And then everything else, as far as the hobby, will absolutely work itself out, Mike. And you can certainly drop me a line. You could DM me, or Jeremy could put you in touch with me. I don't want to be rude, Jeremy, but I do have to run in a minute. And I want to show you a card that you won't see right in a comp because I'm selling it privately to someone locally, but yet it's a gorgeous 49 Bowman, speaking of singles, Jackie Robinson PSA 5. It's got great eye. Well, I'll move it this way. Sorry. It's got great eye appeal.
Beautiful.
And it's just found its forever home. And it's not graded super high, and it doesn't matter. So, I think it's where we're going, and it doesn't matter if it's Jackie Robinson or if it's Frank Viola or Tim Tuffle, my brother's favorite player, and those cards are worthless. Meaning, like, you can hobby however you like, and it's really easy, though, to get caught up with, like, who's driving what car in your neighborhood. Well, it's the same thing in cards. Keep off of IG. It's not going to do any good for you if your budgetary constraints are, like, driving you crazy. And I'm not talking to you, Mike. I'm talking to anyone who might be listening and find value here. Like, go outside, touch some grass, right? Hit some tennis balls or go for a walk, whatever the case may be. But this is not the end all be all. And I love this space. But Mike, I get burnt out as well. And even if I can afford the card I'm looking for, that still doesn't mean that I don't need time away from it. And I feel like, that balance of kind of coming back, it all starts to work for us, at the right time and at the right place. And I'm sure you'll find yours, Mike. I have no doubt.
Mike, you want to respond to Leighton before he heads out?
Yes, I have a counterpoint, Leighton. If you, for your whole life, were eating McDonald's at this restaurant that you were talking about, and then all of a sudden everything is 400 or 500 times more expensive, you would probably be upset about it. Yeah, you can still go to the 7-Eleven and get a pop or whatever. All I'm saying is that hobby boxes shouldn't be $500 to $800 a box, when really I could go buy I don't know, Leighton, you would know, 78 tops box or something, for the same price. But I agree with you, Leighton. A little background on me real quick. I've never owned a cell phone. I am on one social media. Now, Leighton, listen, I'm on one social media because in 2013, my sociology class, I talked to them and they said, let's do it as an experiment. And I'm still on it. Okay. So I couldn't agree with you more. I work with teenagers and it's a big problem, dude, when it comes to phones first thing in the morning, all that stuff. Our state just went to a law where we can't have them. I totally agree with you on that. And I also agree with you that eye appeal matters the most when it comes to cards.
Well, listen, I want to address McDonald's for a minute because it's a great point. And understand, I don't come from any money. I'm the oldest of 4. My brother and my 2 sisters, Mike, are adopted. My family, we were the poorest people in our town of where we grew up. I drove a station wagon. I was just telling my son who's 10 earlier tonight. He was asking what my first car was. It was an absolutely effing hideous station wagon. And I have worked tirelessly for decades in a space that I love. But this is the point, and this is the truth. I don't disagree about inflation. I don't want to get political, but I don't get pissed off if I can no longer afford something. The way that my brain works, whether it be entrepreneurial or business wise, I just figure out a different solution. Maybe it's just survival. I'm not sure, but I guess what I'm saying is, if that expensive restaurant became too expensive, I would just cook it home. I don't need to go to McDonald's or the expensive restaurant. There's a lot of joy to be had in a different way. So what I'm saying is, look at that, look at the hobby through that kind of lens. Believe me, before you know it, you'll be dispensing advice to someone who maybe is paying you for that advice, and you can use that money to increase your collection, but not through wax, buying some good single cards for your collection.
The other little piece here is that, I mean, I know it's analogies, but sports cards are, you know, a luxury sort of item. Food is sustenance. We need food to survive. So, you know, you're gonna find something else to eat if the price of McDonald's goes up 10x. And
Exactly, you're going to cook at home. Exactly.
Hey, Leighton brought up restaurants. All right, I'm just using his analogy. All right, I'm the new guy here. All right, I'm trying to fit in.
You're
Well,
doing
welcome,
great.
Mike. It was great. It was great connecting with you.
Thanks. You too.
Are you out of here, Leighton?
I am. I got to take care of Cause and put him to bed.
All right. Thanks for joining. We'll see you. We'll talk soon. See you later.
Sounds good. Take it easy, guys.
Take care, buddy. All right. Thank you, Leighton, for okay, Mike. Just you and me now, guys. It's gonna be me and Mike now for the next 20 minutes or so, and then Karvin is gonna pop on and Chris Hoge a little bit after that. So, Mike, just you and me. This is gonna be fun now. And I want to just do a couple comments first before we continue on. Because Chris from Missouri says some longtime collectors feel underappreciated. I think that's exactly where you're at. And I listen, my heart says, I hear you, buddy. I hear you. Let's talk about it. Let's talk it through. Let's find a solution for you and everybody else who feels that way. That's my heart. My head says, too bad, so sad. Got to move on with your life. You got, because unless you want to go broke by buying wax. So there's that. That's just where my head goes, because again, I'm just trying to be practical. And I think that's the practical response. I don't like it. You don't like it, to the point where it's going to trigger you. And here you are today because of a result of that, which I think is great, actually. Chris from Missouri says, asking Greg for a metaphor is like ... Very clever. Hanif, welcome to the show. And Retro 80 says, as a fellow Mike, this guy is awesome. So there you go. The crowd is, the chat's enjoying you so far. I think you're going to resonate with a lot of people. And to be honest, Mike, on Sports Cards Live, I don't know that I'm sure I've had similar discussions with people who aren't collecting the Jordans and the Bradys and the Kobes and the Mantles and the, you know, people who don't have $100,000 a year budgets. Most people don't have that or even close to it. So I feel like there's going to be a segment of the audience that is going to resonate. You're going to resonate with them. And so I want to really hear as much as we can from you, and, you know, really dig into where your heart is, your heart and your head. When I talk about the heart versus the head, it's because I think there's two ways to look at things. And so I want to dig in a bit more. Do you have anything going through your mind right now that you want to mention?
Yeah, when you three guys were talking about your net worth, I'm like, dude, I'm a teacher. I'm a high school teacher and a football coach. I don't want to know what my net worth is. You know, so there's a lot of us just trying to grind through it. I get it. And everyone has a net worth, I guess. But I don't know if I want to figure out my percentage of what I spend on cards. It probably, well, my wife wouldn't want me to, but so I think there's a certain segment that you know, they don't do that kind of stuff, like you just said, you know, the Bradys and the Jordans and all that stuff.
Well, I think there's I think there are sports card content often centers around the big numbers, the big names, the big players, the big cards. But that's such a small percentage of the overall hobby. And I think a lot of people who spend a lot of time on social media have a lot of us, and I'll put myself in that group, because I sometimes wonder, or I need to go to a card show and see the people buying everything. And by everything, I mean buying all cards from all eras at all price points, to be reminded that this hobby is not just about the GOATs. There are thousands of people that are not sharing their collection on social media, who are just collecting like we used to collect in the 80s and the 70s and 60s if you're around back then. So I don't know. It's a nice reminder that that's what's going. Because listen, I collect low-end cards myself. I don't consider them investments. I just collect them. And the other thing, I mean, even all this net worth conversation that we were having before, I'm not sharing what It's funny, Mike. You're a teacher. I'm an accountant by trade. I track everything, so I know exactly. I pretty much can open up a spreadsheet and I know exactly what my net worth is, which is simply your assets minus your liabilities. That's all your net worth is what do you have that's worth anything minus your debt. That's your net worth. So it's but I also, made a living making financial statements for companies, and so I make them for myself too. So does that clarify any of that for you at all?
Oh no, I knew what you meant. I just think that there's a certain segment of the hobby, including myself, that I have a box of Cordell Stewart Steeler cards, or a box of Steelers or Phillies cards, which, by the way, the Phillies are a perfect group of people to collect because their old vintage stuff is cheap, right? So what I'm getting at is I never added up, like, okay, I got this and that. That's all I was getting at. But I understand look, Jeremy, I get that people are, if you have a Gretzky's and who's your favorite player, Joe Sakic or no? Yeah. And so if you have a certain amount in that, I get it. You want to do that, but there's some of us out there that don't do that.
That don't do what?
That we don't just track every dollar for every card that we have. If I have, I've never been on Card Ladder. I've never been on that stuff. I mean, I get comps are important if you're trying to sell a card, but I don't really care what the last Cordell Stewart 1996 Pacific that I just bought or have sold for. I really don't care.
Well, Mike, let me just clarify. I don't just keep track of every dollar I spend on cards. I keep track to the penny of every cent that goes in and out of my life in every area, every single thing, down to the penny, everything is tracked. Like that.
Hey, my brother-in-law. Oh, I'm sorry. My brother-in-law is a CPA, so I get it. All right. I know.
Okay. I appreciate that. Okay. We're going to do a few comments here, Mike. First of all, Victory Investments, Sean says he's voicing what many people feel about wax prices being so high. Personally, it's been too high for me to justify for 5+ years. If I get the itch to open wax, I buy 90s junk wax. Do that, Mike. It's fun. That's not bad advice right there from Sean. And he's been 5 years. Guys, I stopped buying wax 15 years ago or so now. I used to leave the card shop. I'd spend $1,200 on wax at the card shop and feel like I just got my thing handed to me. I drive home from the card shop like the same feeling I'd have if I went to the casino and lost $1,000. Felt like I lost my money. So, and it wasn't a good feeling, but I was tempted by the allure of opening the wax, the dopamine hits we get from opening wax. But I finally stopped because I just couldn't handle the losses anymore. And not only the losses, not getting cards that I wanted. So that was my experience with that. Have you ever felt that way?
Oh, all the time. And I get what he's saying, but for me, and I'm just talking about me, because there's plenty of my friends that all they open is 88 Donruss, 91 Fleer, all that stuff. For me, I already got the dopamine hit of getting an 88 Donruss Greg Jeffries. I don't need that. I don't need that hit again. All right. But I wouldn't mind getting the new rookie for, the new hot rookie in football, whoever that may be, the new Jaden Daniels. That's kind of where I come from. That is great advice, though, Victory Investments. Totally agree with you. I do that with some older wild card stuff. Couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. Yeah. And Sean's always got great comments. Chris Hayes says, Jeremy is a CPA, I think, like me. So I get it and love to instigate these talks. Chris Hayes does instigate. And yes, Chris Hayes. So in Canada, I was designated as a CA, which stood for Chartered Accountant back in 2000. But the three designations in Canada merged, I don't know when, 15, 20 years ago or so, and we all became CPAs. There were a couple of other designations. Jeff Will says, my brother is a teacher and has twice my net worth. So not sure how that happened. What matters more is your spending, which is true. I mean, spending is going to really impact you. Andy, my favorite player is Teemu Selanne. Teemu Selanne. I don't know if it's Timu or Tamu, but that's my favorite player. He's a hockey player. Let's Go Jordan says net worth is not assets or liabilities calculation. It's how you feel about yourself. That's the heart talking right there. And in a way, it's a different sort of thing. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. Nice sentiment. Let's Go Jordan. He then says Canadian pennies. Yes, sir. I have Canadian pennies that I track, but I also track my US pennies. Mike Petty here says, I just started Card Ladder and all of a sudden values have a new meaning. It's quite eye-opening. And GC says, let's get Mike a Card Ladder subscription. So we have one of the founders of Card Ladder coming on with us a little bit later. We'll see what we can do. But Mike Petty's comment here, and I'm going to ask you, Mike Zier, because I remember what happened when I got my first Beckett magazine in the 80s. Right away, my mind was opened to the fact that all these cards that I've been collecting and sorting on my bedroom floor, my red shag carpet I had in my childhood bedroom, raw on carpet, all these cards all of a sudden had value. I didn't know that. I loved them all along, but now I open this magazine, like, wow, my Steve Yzerman rookie cards worth $60. Oh my God. Here I am, 13 years old, and this card's worth $60 or whatever that was. I was happy to see that because back then I might have had a job making $3.50 an hour as a busboy, and to have $60 worth of in one card was eye-opening, similar to what Mike Petty is saying here. If he's being serious, Mr. Petty, that values have a new meaning. But that's that. Do you remember that, Mike, when the Beckett magazines first came out? Did you have any experience similar to what I just described?
So I like I said, I grew up in the 90s and I worked at a card shop in Miles City, Montana. And Beckett's were huge, right? But you always had the buy and the sell price, and I love that. But of course, that all changed in 1999 with eBay, and then you could go on, and then eBay is, in my opinion, still the true market. I get the whole shill stuff. You don't know if it really sold for that or whatever. But yes, I loved Beckett. I loved getting the new monthly. And then, when they were expanding during the card boom, all of a sudden a hockey Beckett came out, and, basketball Beckett's came out. That was a big deal. That was awesome. Now, now these guys got their own Beckett. And I loved those days, Jeremy, and loved them.
Absolutely. Oh, I remember there. And that's what, Mike, I wonder sometimes if that's what still drives me in this hobby is those old days, those pre-Beckett days when it was just about getting those cards back then and completing that set of O-Pee-Chee hockey and Topps baseball and football every year. Like that's my growing up in the hobby. I started in 1980 in the hobby. That's when I started collecting cards, and I got my first cards from my cousin. And then by 1982, that was big because we had a big rookie on the Winnipeg Jets named Dale Howardchuk, whose card came out. And I remember, can't wait to see and back then the cards look so different every year. Now they all look the same. All the brands, they don't look that much different year after year anymore. And I've always, just as a total tangent, I've always kind of wondered, we're dealing with 8.75 square inches of real estate here. How many possible designs could there be? But the card companies still come up with more and more. But back then, it was they looked so different every year. It was just so much fun. Forget where else I was going with that. So we'll go to Skeppy's comment here. He says, how does a guy with no phone keep up with the card market? Honest question. Can you shed some light on that, Mike?
Yeah, Skeppy, hi. I don't really care about the card market. If I'm going to buy a card or whatever, I just go completed sales on eBay, and that's a good enough comp. I don't need to grind out every dime and penny and stuff because my life doesn't depend on it. Other than that, I will say that you can use the computer. There's different ways you can do things on a computer. And again, I don't really deal in, these multi-$1,000 cards. And even before I sold all my cards, my best cards, Jeremy, would have been, a BGS 9.5 Barry Sanders rookie, those kind of cards, the good stuff like that I enjoyed. But good question though, Skeppy, but that's the answer.
I think you won a lot of fans when you simply said, I don't care about the card market. I think people were like cheering you on. I'm serious when you said that, because we have a lot of people who lean heavy collector here in the chat with us tonight. Karvin Cheung, what's going on? Good to see you, buddy. Welcome to the show. He says, what up to you as well, Mike? Foul Ball says, I feel sad for anybody who tracks every cent. I get a kick out of it. I enjoy it. Like, I get up, I log into the banks, I log into the PayPal, and I just update my spreadsheet. But I'm a pretty efficient accountant, so it doesn't take me long. And I'll tell you this, when it comes time for tax time at the end of the year, there's no work to do. It's just like, oh, I just zip it over to my accountant. I do have an accountant now. I don't do it myself anymore. And that's it. It's easy peasy, lemon squeezy. DS says similar, but different as to if I were to. I wish you guys would just post your comments so I could read them easily all the time. What is he saying here? Similar, but different as to if I were to walk into a casino, I expect to win money. Where the very little hobby boxes I bought, I got lucky and hit, but I would say learn poker, baccarat, or 21. Sorry, I'm not going to take any more time to interpret that comment. But I would love to. Ziggy says, says, good guess. Linda's first says, I love this gentleman. So I knew you'd have some fans in here, Mike. Bob Boozle says, need to get Bobby Jr. to show me how to use the app. Yes, you do. CPA Jeremy talking my talk, says Chris Hayes. Texas Ranger says, why are we shilling Card Ladder? I don't like the word shilling, but I will tell you can see Card Ladder's logo right up there. I have an affiliate link, so but it's not shilling. It's really enjoying what they do in their service. I've been using Card Ladder since it came out, and I use it every day. Just about every day, I use Card Ladder. I've used it during this show already to see what that PMG green would sell for. So yeah, that's why we shill Card Ladder. But it's more like sharing worthy tools, I would say. It's like you find a new restaurant, or you watch a movie and you tell your friends about it. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that, Texas? Thorson, greetings to you. Mike Petty says, I think you can put raw cards into booths, but I can't imagine the value of close, but maybe you don't know what that means. Here's Victor, the card specialist, says, I'm not a CPA, but I'm a spreadsheet guy too. Every penny has to have a name or a home. Mike, you don't track your finances that way?
So when I got married, it was pretty much decided that my wife would do the bookkeeping because I was a bachelor for a long time. Victor, good for you, pal. I don't track everything to the cent, I guess. I probably should be better than that. But no, I don't. No, I don't.
Fair. Chris Hayes says, Jeremy, do you have your collection in Market Makers? I think you mean Market Movers or Card Ladder for auto update. I do not. I do not have my cards in any system with automatic market value updates. And the reason for that is because I'm a long-term collector. My cards for the, yes, I get in and out of cards at times, but I have a long-term horizon with my collection, Mike and chat. And so I did at one point, but when the market started to go south in 23 or so, it was no fun seeing my collection value go down. So I deleted them out of there because I didn't want to watch that. That's just how I coped with it. I didn't want to see that value anymore. And that made my life easier, sort of. I was like, okay, because I love the cards. I don't want any thoughts to sneak their way in to make me feel like, oh, that card was worth $500. Now it's worth $300. I'm not going to like it as much. Like I didn't want to contaminate my brain with that timing in the market, if you will. So, and now I don't need to know what it's worth at all. So when I say I track every penny, I'm talking about money in, money out of my life. That's what I track. Every month I do mark to market my investments that I can log into and see what they're at. I just to have I have an unrealized and a realized section down below, so I know what's actually going on. But it's all about just running the business, which is life. Life in itself is sort of a business because there's money involved. So anyway, enough of that for now. Hello, Orlando from A Collector's Dream. Mike, you were kind of smirking. Anything pop in your mind that you were thinking?
No, there's plenty of cards I've had in my collection where I don't want to know what the value is of anymore. I mean, in fact, Jeremy, if you remember, and you know this, and so do most of your listeners, I mean, remember when, Mark McGuire's were so much, or Canseco's or whatever? Well, yeah, not so much anymore unless you got a PSA 10, right? So we're used to kind of defeat in the money aspect of things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Foul Ball says, I don't care about the card market earlier. Flippers care about the market. Yeah. So I had someone DM me today, basically showing me a card that they were interested in buying. Someone was asking more than it's worth. And he basically said, I'm just trying to understand why people always want to, why some people want to charge more than what a card is worth. And we ended up, I said to him, like, is it a flipper that has the card? I think he thought it was a flipper that I'm not going to go searching for the conversation in my DMs, but the gist of it really was that once a card enters that flipper's vortex, you're going to have to pay a premium to get it out, because these guys are businessmen and they want to earn money on the cards that they're acquiring. So the trick then is to get to the cards before the flippers do. But I think Foul Ball is correct. Of course, flippers care about the market. They need to, because they're running their business on margin, so they have to know what things are selling for. But here's a good one for you, Mike. Rugs Capital says, shout out to the hotel in Grand Forks with the indoor mini golf course, and I believe that was a Holiday Inn. They had the little arcade there and the pool. We used to go there in the summers and go shopping in Grand Forks, North Dakota.
Everything for Canadians when it comes to Grand Forks. Remember, they actually had a Tim Hortons. They don't anymore, but I mean, the reason they had it was because of you guys, Jeremy.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, that can't be going so well right now, I don't think. For Grand Forks must be hurting right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's too bad. That's too bad. Linda's first says, that's great thinking, Jeremy, because if you do check values of cards weekly, monthly, you will get anxious and maybe sell off cards early. I think that could be true, possibly be true. Yeah, I like to be surprised when I own a card and I see it doing well. I cover some of the auctions, Fanatics Collect and MC Sports Cards, 90s auctions, and I see some of these cards selling for amounts. I'm like, whoa. I'm particularly interested in this auction, in this card, because I happen to have that card or a similar one in my collection. So DS, no problem for the broken English. I'm sorry. I just try to help me understand. I want to be able to understand you. That's all it is, for sure. All right, where are we at here? Oh, okay, Mike, was there anything else that you kind of wanted to talk about when you came on tonight? I mean, we've had this plan for a while. So was there? Actually, let me ask you this, because you're not alone. You have a bunch of friends, internet friends, let's call them, hobby friends, social media friends, even though you don't have a phone, which is fine, obviously, but you do use a computer. What are some of the sentiments that you're hearing from those guys and gals? Like, is there a crew of are people really pissed off right now? Like, how deep does the angst go, and who is the angst directed at?
No, great question. I would say that because of social media, I've met people that just collect, that have never opened any wax, or some that have, they just collect singles, and then people who are upset. But most of the people that I see the comments from, they're upset. And a lot of it has to do with the return, right, Jeremy? I mean, it's one thing back in 2017, you bought a box, hobby box, I'm saying, a football. I'm just talking football, okay, Jeremy? For like $200, you get $50, $75 return. All right, it stinks, but hey, you still maybe have that Mahomes base rookie or whatever. Well, now you're paying $800,000 for a box of Prism, and you get kind of the same return. But I mean, it's not a pitchfork thing, because honestly, the money's coming in from somewhere, right? The packs are getting open somehow. I would caution with this, the reselling things. There's a reason reselling happens. That's because cards aren't selling.
You mean
so
repack?
Repacks. Sorry, when the repacks, there's a reason they happen. And I get the gambling aspect of it. I'm a gambler. I get it. And I like that part about it. Okay. But I also, like you said, I've had to change the way it is, because you only have so much money. And I hope my hope is that people budget accordingly. I mean, that's important. Know what your budget is, whether it's monthly, weekly, or whatever. You're saving up. I love, Jeremy, one of my favorite things is people that say, hey, I've 6 months, I've been saving up for this card. I know the guy who's got it. He's going to save it for me, and then they buy it. I mean, I think that dedication is awesome. I love that.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's like being a kid and saving up for something. You save up your allowance, your Christmas money to go buy whatever it is you want to go buy, whether it was the Nintendo system or a phone nowadays. Who knows? I don't know what kids are buying, but yeah, I love that too. It's fun to think about that for sure. Let's do a few comments, and we're going to bring Karvin on. Rugs Capital shout out. Oh, we did that one. My bad. Sorry. Zach Swisher. I moved the number one card in my collection recently just due to the amount the card went up in just 6 months. The question for Zach Swisher is, how are you going to feel if it doubles in value in the next 6 months? Like that happened to me. I sold cards a year and a half ago and that was a large amount of money that I sold cards for. I get probably 25 to 100% more for them now, and got to live with it. You got to live with it. But like someone said earlier, no one's ever gone broke by taking some profit along the way. So you just move on. And Midlife Sports Card says the return has changed because the game changed. Instead of playing with penny slots, buying wax is like playing the high limit room. Bigger buy-in, but a bigger potential return, which also means a bigger potential loss along the way. How do you feel about that, Mike?
I'll say to Midlife Sports Cards, Vegas doesn't survive on the high limit room as much as they probably do on the penny slots. Maybe, I don't know. I think both are important. Let's just put it that way. I changed what I said. I think both are important, okay? You got to have your whales, but you also have to have the Joe Schmoes that come in for the weekend to catch a football game and then gamble a little bit. I agree. I get it, but it doesn't mean I have to like it.
Absolutely. Jason Pringle, buddy of mine, says my budget is $50 a month right now, saving up for a Gary Cheever rookie. See, there you go. $50 a month. Like that does not get you very far. But if you stay in your, I don't want to say stay in your lane so much. If you play in the sandbox that you can play in, you can find ways. That's really back when we had our first exchange, Mike. That's what I was trying to say was, you know what? And it's almost sort of like Leighton said. I know the McDonald's restaurant was the food was an interesting analogy, but the analogy that I used to use, Mike, was, hey, I want to drive a Ferrari too, but I can't afford it. So I'm going to drive my GMC instead because it's what I can afford. I drive a car that's 12 years old. Luckily, it only has 110,000 kilometers on it, about 65,000 miles. And I plan to drive that thing into the ground. Why? Because the money I'd spend on a car, I'd rather spend on cards. That's two different issues there, but the Ferrari thing I think holds true. It's think about some of these. Think about Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson had $30 million at one time when 30 million was a lot more money than it is now. Still a ton of money, and then he had nothing. And a guy like that, that's a similar feeling that someone who was once rich and is now broke would go through. It's the different, right? It's their own cash flow, whereas with you, it was the price of the product that caused you to not be able to buy it anymore. But it's, I guess what I'm saying is there's just a lot of different experiences that people have that are similar, and we adapt.
So my counter to that would be, even back in the old days, I couldn't afford a Brady Contenders autograph rookie, right? That just wasn't in my budget, but I could get a nice Brady, maybe a serial numbered rookie. Okay. And now we have less and less and less of those opportunities. That's kind of what I'm getting at. And as far as trying to get the wax, like, what was that one baseball product that had where Brady signed a Expos card or whatever? I mean, that stuff went crazy because everyone was looking for a Tom Brady, who's never played for the Expos, autographed baseball card. And good for fanatics. I get it. They get people to buy it, but I'm never going to be able to afford that stuff anyway. So I get your Ferrari analogy, but how about we talk Fords and GMCs or Hondas, and you know what I'm saying here, Jeremy? Because I'm never going to get a Ferrari anyways. I never was back then. I'm not going to now, and that's okay. But I still want to be able to get a car.
Fair. No, that's a great counterpoint. And I guess to counterpoint your counterpoint, you can still get a car in the card world. You can still go buy single. Yep. You're just not gonna be able to crack the wax and that's what you like to do. And if that's the only thing you like to do in the hobby, then you're gonna have to slow down. And I think you have, and you have slowed down. And if you think about it, this is why breaking became a big thing too. People couldn't afford the whole box, the whole case, the whole whatever themselves. So they started fractionalizing it and dividing it up and picking teams in a way to divide it in a manner that was fair. And then that just became its whole own thing. So breaking, have you ever considered getting, and I'm not advocating, but have you ever considered getting into breaking as a way to scratch that itch?
Let's talk about breaking, okay?
Hold on. Just one quick second.
Hold on.
Okay. Karv, we're gonna have this conversation. We're gonna bring you on right after this, okay? Okay, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, Karvin. All right, so here's the thing. All right, in 2016, 17, I think 17, 18, I got into breaking. It was the best thing. I thought it was better than milk toast, okay? I mean, I could buy a whole case worth of Pittsburgh Steelers. I have so many TJ Watt Silver Prism rookies because of that. So I can't diss breaking, okay? But then all of a sudden things spiraled out of control because of Luka. All right, and basketball. That's fine. I get it. But yeah, I like breaking. I still break a little bit, and you just the prices have gone up. But I like that where I could buy a flagship Phillies team out of a case or whatever, and get the base cards because I like the base cards, and then try and get a couple $4 jersey cards, and I'm like, woo! I paid $50 for two $4 jersey cards, and somehow I'm happy about it. And so yes, I like breaking. I'm not a huge into breaking anymore, but I was 17, 18, 19, I suppose, into it pretty heavily, actually.
Yeah. And you enjoyed it. I mean, so that's fine. Hey, obviously breaking is enjoyable to a lot of people. The Mangini collection, the president, John Mangini, says, I think it's sad so many people are priced out of buying boxes like they always have. That sucks, but it is what it is. It's a new hobby and left many collectors behind. Absolutely. Let's go. Jordan tells me to sell my Jackson card and get a used Ferrari. Not even close. There's no way I would even contemplate that idea. I have no interest in a Ferrari. Greg Cohn. Oh, sure, I'd love to have one, but I don't need one. In a way, the braking environment has allowed some to take a short turn into driving a Ferrari, so to speak. Yeah, definitely. Dan's Vintage says, Mike, please don't get into breaking. Dan's a singles guy. He's a vintage singles guy. And I think a lot of us vintage singles guys would say that. But again, if you want the most current product and your favorite team, the vintage guys aren't going to give you the advice that you're going to care to hear. So don't listen to us, and I'll put myself in that group because I'm among them. And Linda Sur says, this dude is a gem. So people are enjoying you. I knew that they would. Yes, Chris Hayes, don't worry. I plan to do that for sure. You just wanted it, and LGJ just wanted it. Dan Brown says, Mangini, can we bring back the quantity debate? And Dan's Vintage says, guy who blew money in breaking is now complaining about wax prices. How do you respond to that? He's kind of
whoa, shots fired, Dan's Vintage. Shots fired. Bring it on, pal. All right, you're right. But that still doesn't mean that I'm happy that all the prices are gone up. I don't break near as much as I used to because the prices got crazy because some breakers, not all, don't DM me, don't send me stuff. Some breakers go a little bit crazy on the profit margin, shall we say, Dan's Vintage Baseball PC, okay? And I do love singles. I break much, much, much less. But how a guy can complain about wax prices is when I was buying into breaks, it was saving me money. And even then, if I bought the Steelers for $40 and a box was $200, that was great. Well, now I have to spend $400 or whatever it may be for the Steelers, and the boxes are $2,000. So I guess it comes down to the money. Everything's always about the money, guys. It's just the way the world works. I didn't make the system. That's the way the system is.
Yeah, that's right. That's the way the system works. You are in the system, and you got to adapt to stay in the system. That really, I think that all it all here. Greg Cohn says, "I'd like to send this guy a box to open." Now, Greg Cohn is a senior VP at Leaf Trading Cards, so I'm going to send Greg your email address, and you can send him your address if you want to take Greg. We're gonna hold you to this, Greg, because you have the power to. So I'll put you guys in touch, and maybe there you go.
Well, let me just interrupt real quick. I know I'm not supposed to interrupt. That's one of the rules. But Greg, I just ordered. They just shipped yesterday from Dave and Adams 2 jumbo boxes of whatever the new football that's coming out that has the dual hits, because I'm going for the Polamalu and Rod Woodson dual. So I was saving up for that after I saw your little what do you call them things? TikTok thing that was really good. But I'll tell you this, Greg Cohn, you can send me a box of cards and I will open it. So that's a done deal.
Nice. I love it. That's great. I'll facilitate that, Mike. And Greg,
that's okay. You don't have to. I was just kidding. But that's nice of them to offer. It's awesome.
No, why not? I mean, hey, this is we're a community, and we all I love to say, guys, we can have different religious interests, different political interests, different sports teams even, but we all share the love of cardboard, seriously, and that makes us a community. And I think that, at the end of the day, we're not always all going to get along, that's for damn sure, but we can at least try and support each other when we can. And I'm honored that I can facilitate that, and I think it's fun. And hey, what Life says, no, Greg, I'm not going to say that one, but
that was good. I saw it. You had it up for a little bit. I saw it.
It's pretty fun. Greg's just being silly. He's just being funny, because that wasn't planned, or that's for sure. But in any event, we'll see. Hey, anyway, very nice of Greg. Greg's a good guy. I've known him for years. Well, Mike, listen, we're gonna rotate you out and bring in a couple new guests. Unless you want to stick around for a bit, you can. It's up to you, actually. You want to stick around for a bit? We're going to bring Karvin and Chris on.
Well, it depends. I got a half a Dr. Pepper. It's not a school night, so I'm willing to stay if you want me. But if you don't want me, because a little bit of me goes a long ways, Jeremy. But if you want me, I can stay.
Here, I want to introduce you. I want to introduce you to Karvin and Chris, and say hello, and then we'll let you go shortly after. Okay? How's that sound?
Okay.
All right. Let's bring on first. Chris, we're gonna put you out 5 minutes or so. We're gonna bring on Karvin first. Karv, sorry, I brought you on by surprise. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. How about you? How's it going, Mike?
Hi, Karvin.
Hey, glad to hear your journey. It's great.
One of the things that's interesting on this episode is that the first half of the episode, or at least the first part, we're talking about a card that sells for $12.9 million. One card that sells for $12.9 billion. And now we're talking about the price of wax at $400 or $500. Like, we're talking about the top end of the market at 13 mil. And then we're talking about, like, are you getting priced out of buying packs of cards like you've been doing your whole life? It's just kind of crazy how we're looking at two things that are such opposites in the hobby right now. I just want to state that it's an interesting kind of both ends of the spectrum type of episode here. But Mike, Karvin not only is the creator of several iconic brands in the hobby from his days working at Upper Deck and Panini, but he's now in the distribution business and deals with the price of wax. So Karvin, you hear what Mike's talking about, and what do you think? Like, how is Mike ever going to be able to just buy boxes of cards at the LCS anymore to open up for under, like, what's your target price, Mike? What's your target price to buy boxes of cards? What would you like to be paid?
Well, I mean, I still, like I said, remember I just said I bought those Leaf boxes as well, because you can buy 2 of those for basically the same price as one or more, and and you get a lot more autos and those kind of things. But to answer your question, I mean, with inflation and stuff, $200-$300. But I just, when you see some of these prices that come out because of the big chases that they have, $800-$1,000 for Prism, and then I don't even want to think about what Topps Chrome football is going to go for. I mean, holy cow! All right. So
What's your target price? What would you like to be paying again?
okay, $278.35.
275. Karvin, is Mike ever going to be able to go into an LCS and buy products for 200? I mean, that sounds like you can. 275 is still a lot of money, no?
Yeah. Well, the struggle you have is that there's so many choices that people have, and obviously everyone gravitates towards the higher end products. I think if you temper your temptation and basically be disciplined and buy something like a score football that's out now, or if you're talking about like in a flagship football, or if they come out with an archives or something like that's going to be around your price point. Unfortunately, everyone sees the $12.9 million card and they think, "Oh, I want that card." Everyone's chasing the lotto tickets, and the biggest problem is that with those type of cards, you're going to be paying high prices for the entry of wax. So that's the reason why breakers have such an impact on today's market.
Yeah. I want to just, Foul Ball says, I like this guy. He drinks Dr. Pepper, which, by the way, I don't know if you guys drink Slurpees out there, but Dr. Pepper is, I'm not going to say it's the best Slurpee out there, but it's my favorite. When I'm a 7-Eleven buying a Slurpee, I always go for the Dr. Pepper. Greg Cohn here says, wait until Fanatics has to start paying royalties in football. And I said it on an episode a while ago. Carv, I'm sure you have an opinion on it, but what I've said a few times and thought about is that I think the biggest culprits in the price of cards nowadays isn't the card companies or the breakers. I think it's an ecosystem, but I think it's the licensors, the leagues and the PAs that need to get paid on all these things. I think they're the ones driving the prices higher. I feel like, but Karvin, you're probably going to tell me I'm wrong and give a different explanation. Can you respond to that?
Well, I think it's a combination of everything, right? It's not just the licensors, but I mean, here's the fundamental issue with the licensors. They only get paid royalties from the manufacturer. So whatever the manufacturer sells it for, that's the royalties they get. The royalties doesn't go down the chain. So think about it when COVID just hit and all the leagues weren't functionable and they were not selling jerseys, they're not selling anything. There's no games, there's no attendance. All that money going into trading cards was going to didn't get any royalties when the wax went up quite substantially. So obviously when you see that and you're like, hey, wait a second here. Where's my part of the pie, right? When a box was when a box is $200, right? And let's say on a secondary market it goes up to $1,000. Don't worry about where that profit went to, whether it's a store, whether it's a distributor, whether it's the retailer, or whether it's a consumer. It's $1,000 box. That $800, they're not getting a percentage of that $800. So you can see at that point when they were struggling at the time because there's lack of sports, they're looking, wow, look at all the money in the sports card industry, and we're not getting a piece of the action. So I can sympathize with how they felt at that time, because all the leagues were stopped for about a good month and a half to 2 months. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's a whole ecosystem of everyone, right? People's expectations. It's also, whether it's the manufacturer, the licensor, the retailers, the distributors, it's everybody. So I think, that's part of the struggle, is that there's not one person to blame. I think it's a combination of everything, right, for the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think it is the ecosystem. It's just a revolving circle of licensors, manufacturers, breakers, and the manufacturers see what's happening. They want to get a piece. They see that there's more meat on the bone. They want to get a piece of it. It's kind of similar to what PSA does with taking a piece of the value of the cards that they're grading for you. Mm-hmm. They want their chunk of the meat as well, just like the licensors do. It makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. We don't have to like it, but I get it. Okay.
Let me bring up a quote from Greg Cohn, since he's in the audience today, right? Greg always said, and I agree with him. He said,
you guys used this. Let's set some context here. Greg and Karvin used to work together at Upper Deck.
Yeah. So okay. Greg always said that the trading card business, and I will say, along with the gambling business like casinos and also all collectibles, it's that sector of business where the consumers want to profit out of everything too, right? So the consumers that buy the cards, but you don't buy a car and say, well, I'm going to profit off a car unless you're buying like a limited car that's costing you $500,000 or $250,000. You're not buying a TV saying, well, I'm going to sell my TV for more money. So Greg, back in the day when I was working with him at Upper Deck, he actually stated that, and you think about it, he's absolutely right about the trading card business. But it's not just the trading card; it's any collectibles, or it's going to the casinos or buying lotto tickets. You're looking to profit or cash out, right? So.
Okay, thank you, Carv. All right, I'm going to do a couple more comments here. Then, Mike, we're going to say thank you. We're going to bring Chris Hoge on. I'll let you meet him first. Andy says, Karvin, where would you like to see design of cards go? We're not going to do that one right now. We'll come back to it. Ken Golden, I think it's the real Ken Golden. If it is, hello, Ken. He usually DMs me to let me know it's the real Ken Golden. I'd appreciate that if it is you, Ken, but it will assume it is. Says the license. He said, well, the licensors or get the same percentage as they did 30 years. They don't get, I think he's saying don't get the same percentage as they did 30 years ago when I was making cards. I think that's what you're saying. If that is you. Oh, he just texted me. Yeah, it's the real Ken Golden. Okay. The real Ken Golden.
Hello, Ken.
Hi, Ken. Welcome back. It's been a while since we've seen you in the chat, but good to see you. Greg Cohn says, point is they have what he's talking about here is Tops and football. Tops haven't had to yet pay licensing money on football. They won't be coming down when they begin. The price of football cards won't be coming down once they start to pay those licensing fees. He goes on to say, is it that crazy to think someone who has collected the 70s would be browsing late Saturday night? Ken the collector. It's not that crazy, Ken. You've jumped in here before. Yeah, check your text, both of you.
We got it.
I love it. Thank you. All right. What else does he say? They do get the same percent. It's the manufacturers. So now he's saying it's the manufacturers that are running up the prices, not the licensors. And I think I remember hearing something about Fanatics and their new deals and how they were going to have to do some guarantees or something, but could definitely be wrong. Okay. Mike, Chris, you ready to come on? All right, guys. Please welcome Chris Hoge back to the show. Chris, how are you?
Doing well. Great to be here. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Chris.
Can I join? Can I take up the flag that Mike is waving and wag it and wave it even more viciously?
Absolutely.
Because I wrote down a few things.
Go
Okay.
for it, buddy. Go for it.
So first of all, I completely agree with Mike on the price of wax, and I'm going to add a few more things onto this too. Can we talk about the devaluation of the U.S. dollar? How about that? It's lost 25% of its purchasing power since the year 2020. Can we talk about the price of real estate? Real estate is a joke. The amount that these houses are going for, even with interest rates where they are, I'm very upset about real estate. People know my stance on that. Can we talk about the price of insurance? If, God forbid anybody out there would have to buy their own health insurance. They don't have it under an employer's plan. It is terrifying staring down the barrel of the cost of health insurance. How about the price of health care? I'm sure we all saw that story where the woman was billed $1,000 for a cup of orange juice just because the emergency room wanted to throw that on her bill to crank it up. And then here's where I'm going to end with, all right? This is the one that hits me personally the hardest. How about the price of the double cheeseburger at McDonald's? Did you know that it's gone up 6 times in the last 20 years? Did you know? I just Googled this before I came on. The double cheeseburger in New York City is $6.29. That used to be on the dollar menu when I was a younger man. So I'm here with all you guys. These prices are out of control. The devaluation of the U.S. dollar is a big problem. Greed is a big problem. Let's get this stuff back under control. How about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, my favorite burger is the Papa Burger with cheese at A&W. It's almost $12 to get one here, which is like $9 US. It's a lot of money for a single burger. Yeah, right there. Jeremy says we're pissed about the burger more than anything. The price of the burger more than anything. Exactly. Yeah. What do you think? I mean, the price of everything has gone up, not just sports cards. The price of vehicles have gone up in price, and things seem to be just getting more expensive as every day and week go by right now. Karvin, how long is Mike Zier ever going to be able to buy cards at a card shop again for a price point that somebody, I don't know what salaries are nowadays, like what average is, where things lie. But if somebody is making 100 grand a year, 80 grand a year, 60 grand a year, can people making, here, take 100 grand as the base. Can people making under 100 grand a year afford to buy sports cards anymore? I don't know. That might be a crazy question, but I'll put it out there.
Once again, it all depends on how many boxes you want to buy, how many packs, how many breaks you can join. There's many breaks you can join still at a reasonable rate. Whether it's Prism, depends what team you want, or if it's a random team. There's many ways how they skin the cat in the breaks. So that's one way of doing it. The other thing is that I noticed that Mike is a Steelers fan. So obviously you can always buy the Steelers, depending if they have a big rookie. If they don't have a big rookie, it won't be that expensive. So just just find your way, find your way of how to budget your spend. And I think there's still opportunities. Once again, if you want to break the NTs or you want to break the dynasty, then that's going to cost you at the end of the day, right? So
might be a good time to slide into one of the topics I had for you, Karvin, which is really just state of the hobby type of thing. Your general feeling right now that the National is behind us, Fanatics Fest is behind us for 2025 anyway. The West Coast Card Show is behind us just last weekend. And you work in distribution, you've got you're in the hobby, Karv. What do you feel? And with the big sale last weekend of a card that came out of a brand, which brand was your creation, what are your general thoughts on state of the hobby right now?
Well, there's a lot of uncertainty in the hobby. By the way, there's a little bit of feedback going on.
That's okay. Mike, I'm gonna mute you while you're not speaking, so we don't hear that feedback. It's coming from you, but no big deal. Go ahead, Karv.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty with the licensing and everything. We're moving into a new territory, so it's gonna be a wait and see. I think for a lot of people to see what shakes out and what brands are people going to support. There's I think it's just a matter of time when we see what happens with football, basketball, and then with obviously with baseball and hockey, it remains the same. So I think there's a lot going on right now because obviously we've seen how Pokemon has done really well, Magic has done well, the gaming market has taken over a little bit. So there's once again I think the hobby is great. The hobby is alive, as everyone says. The National was great. The West Coast Sports Card Show was great. I mean, attendance was great, and record sales. Obviously, the $12.9 million, but that's something more of a higher end, and that's something different than the average collector, right? I just think that once again, I think Chris hears me say this all the time. Don't fall for all those psychological tricks like FOMOing and YOLOing.
Never FOMO, never YOLO.
Yep. And stay in your lane. Like, be disciplined.
That's it. Stay in your lane. The 3P.
So those are the three things that I can never follow. Just to be honest, I always fall at my feet and I FOMO, I YOLO, and I always go all over the lanes, right? And I think Chris is one of those. You and Chris are two really disciplined collectors, even though Chris is kind of transitioning to a different type of collecting now. It's great to see. I think the more disciplined you are, the better you are on top of it. So I think that's key, right? Whether you want to buy wax, be disciplined, and then buy singles afterwards, or if you want to buy singles, then focus on the singles. Once again, like it is economy where everything flows. There's a balance, right? You need people to break product to sell the cards, right? If no one breaks the product, the cards are always hidden in the boxes. And part of the reason why 90s inserts were so much is that back in 98 and 99, if you remember, there was a lockout. And I had a store at that time, and all the Fleer products and all the Upper Deck products were all 100% returnable. So as long as you have sealed boxes, you can return them, right? And we would buy cases. And at the time when we had to return them before they resumed playing, a lot of people returned those cases, and a lot of those cases got destroyed. So whether there's 100 PMGs with 90 being red and 10 being green, maybe only like 40 of them exist out there. Right, that's why Slam Bams and all these ones, those rare inserts, you never see them because I'm sure they're still hidden somewhere in some boxes in some dumpster site or something like that. So those are things that happen if you don't have enough people breaking the product. Now in these days, as soon as the product comes out, you see like Grail cards pop out like almost within the next 2 or 3 days. But there is still that Steph Curry Superfractor everyone's looking for. Everyone's still looking for the Luka Doncic Black 101. So not everything pops out. So
yeah, that's the one thing that I'm grateful to Breaking for, is releasing all these cards into the public domain and being offered on various platforms for us to go buy. If it wasn't for Breakers, people can't afford. But here's the thing: if it wasn't for Breakers, these cards wouldn't make their way out into the hobby. Well, if these packs and boxes aren't being broken, well, the price is going to have to come down on them, because the retailers are going to have to convert that into cash. They're going to have to clear their shelves. So the only way I believe, I said this, Mike, to you earlier, and I said you're not going to be able to do this. You and your friends aren't going to be able to make this happen. The mountain is too high to climb right now. But the only way to bring the cost, I think the only way, let me rephrase this, the way I'm thinking right now to bring down the price of wax is to stop opening it, stop breaking it. That's the only way. Breakers don't want to hear that. Manufacturers don't want to hear that. Karvin and the distributors don't want to hear that. But that's the only way to bring down the cost, is talk with your wallet. But it has to happen en masse, or else 1 or 2 people aren't going to make a difference. So ain't no mountain high enough, says GC. That's right. So Greg says, if it wasn't for Breakers, would box prices come crashing down? I was just kind of saying that. I think, and some people are behind, so I think that could be the case if it would happen. Foulball says collectors never open boxes. Well, I think they do, but I don't think they open as much as Breakers do anymore. Well, maybe they do. They probably open as much, maybe more, but the breaking is such a big part of it. Carv, do you know that breakdown between Breakers and I know it's impossible because retailers sell to Breakers too, but do you have a feeling for the breakdown between the amount of product open by the end customer versus Breakers?
Well, the end customer also buys into breaks. So I would say, if you want to look at like Breakers versus LCS, that's probably the way of measuring it. I would say the majority is Breakers right now, because you can watch, you can see it, because you see Breakers do like 10 cases a night, 20 cases, 30 cases. You go to Asia, these guys are opening 200 cases of NT in 2 days. So that just tells you like the online. I mean, this is not. Here's the funny thing. Well, lower end, a lot of people don't. There's more people that support it on lower end, like Flagship or Archives or Allen Ginter. Obviously, that's more of an LCS buy, because it's more of an entertainment value, I would say. For like, let's look at the real world. The real world is everyone's buying online right now, so that should tell you something. It's not that much different than the real world versus versus trading cards, like live box breaks, live shopping platforms, right? People buying Instacart, they're buying all your Uber Eats. Like, a lot of people are in that mode. They're buying from online retailers versus actually going to the store. You don't need a car now, right? Before, you needed a car to go shopping. Mm-hmm. So those are things that are just part of our lives. The ease and the convenience of it coming to me versus me going out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mike, you're off mute. What do you think of all this? Anything percolating in your mind as we're talking through it?
Percolating, good word. Yes, I want to say that Chris came in guns blazing. He's right. Everything he said is right. And all of that affects cards, because all that is more important, including the price of a cheeseburger, is more important than the price of cards. Now, Karvin, it's interesting. Of course, you kind of put him on the spot, Jeremy, which is all right. He's a regular guest. You can do that. But he still only came up with 3 products that I could buy at my budget, right? I mean, now he did throw in Allen and Ginter, although those prices have started to creep up a little bit there too. But he's right, and I am excited. I want for Flagship football, Tops foot. I mean, that's going to be good. Maybe I could pick up some Chrome Blasters and all that stuff. But I think Chris hit the nail on the head. As I'm sitting here, those things are more important, and cards are fun, and you have to find a way to adapt. And I'll never be able to afford those other kind of cards anyways, like Dynasty. I wouldn't be able to buy those back when I had, back when cards were cheaper. I wasn't buying $500 Exquisite boxes. I should have been, because then I could retire from teaching. But I wasn't, and I just really appreciate you having me on. And I think it's important that some of us old timers, we do have to adapt, but we do miss the way it used to be. We are happy for the new money because it brings in, I get it, brings in so much. It brings in this show. It brings in lots of stuff, but it is tough to let that go. And collecting cards is about nostalgia, right? I mean, that's about someone that you saw Schwarber hit 4 home runs or whatever it may be. That's what I collect, is memories.
It's collecting sports cards is about nostalgia for collectors, and flippers don't care if they're only flipping. They just they're out to make a profit, which is fine. It's a capitalistic society, right? People do it, but I agree with you, Mike. I agree with you. We talked about it earlier, those early days of me sorting my 84 O-Peaches on my red shag carpet in my bedroom, my childhood bedroom. I mean, those are some of my favorite memories, and I think that's partially what still drives me today. And I'm sure everybody listening who's around my vintage or born around, or born between the early 70s and the early 80s, I think a lot of us share similar memories and experiences and motivations for being in the hobby. So, and Mike, I want to say it's been great to have you, and I love it when I can make a friend with somebody who we started out kind of banging heads lightly online, and now here we are having on the show, and I'm happy to know you now and count you among my hobby friends. So I'm glad you came on, Mike. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it, and I'll keep watching. The content is always good, and so you triggered me. It's okay. I mean, I get triggered a lot. Like I said, I work with 8th graders. So 27 years now, I've taught 8th graders. I get triggered regularly, but it's how you handle it, Jeremy. And I thought we handled it well, both of us, back and forth. That's the important thing.
Absolutely. Hey, and look, we must have, because we're here today calling you my friend. We did good. We done good, Mike. All right, well, man, thanks so much. It's really good having you. And let's check in. Let's check in 6-12 months and see where you're at, and maybe we'll get you back on again.
All right, sounds good. I'd love to be on anytime.
Take care. Well, look forward to having you in the chat later on. Take care, Mike. Thank you.
All right, see ya.
Take care. All right, guys. Well, thanks to Mike. That was really fun to have him on the show. Hope you all enjoyed that. All right. So I want to move into a couple of questions here. There's a gentleman who sent me a message on Instagram. I think it was today or yesterday, basically asking me my thoughts on something. I said, you know what? There's too much for me to answer right now. So pop into the chat tonight and I'll bring the questions up and we'll talk about them. So let's get into these questions. Here's the first. Ken Wood. Ken Wood says, hey, Jeremy, I want to ask Chris and yourself and Karvin, what do you guys think has caused this market boom of cards selling for so much money again, just like when the pandemic happened? He's also curious about how long you guys think this booming market will last for. 2 questions that I don't think either of us know the precise answers for, but I think it's good conversation that we could have out of it. So while I see Chris's mind, look at Chris, guys. That's what it looks like when Chris's brain is working overtime. I'm surprised we can't, we can't see the smoke coming out of his ears because of those headphones. So Karvin, why don't we start with you? Are you good to take this one? What do you think caused the market to boom the way it has recently?
Well, I think it's people now looking at the GOATs. They're looking and focusing, and realistically, when we were looking at basketball and in general, basketball has the most iconic players, more so in terms of culture and everything. With basketball shoes, just looking at shoes alone tells you everything. And I think with Jordan, Kobe, that led the boom back in 2020, right? But afterwards, everything went right, rose up, and everything dropped off. And then once again, we're seeing basketball's leading the whole boom again. But it's not everything. right? We're seeing spots where it's booming, and I think it's more organic this time than everything going up. Back then, like everything went up. Oh, well, this, if Jordan's going for this much, and LeBron is this, or Kobe is this, or Mahomes is that, or Brady is that, we saw everything start going up, and then everyone started comparing other players in reference to those players. Now you're seeing specific cards, specific sets, and iconic grails that are going up, and you're seeing primarily, and I know Kobe has been probably the hottest player this time around. Also, you have to look at what's going on in the financial markets too. Like crypto is at an all-time high, right? You're looking at Bitcoin being at 118,000. I know it's dropped down to about a 108, but it was like almost 120,000. You got the S&P 500 and everyone's securities, all their stock market is just booming, and now people are seeing, oh, I have money to play with now. So you're also looking at people branching out and probably looking at different investments, and that's why you're looking at the investment opportunities for a lot of these key grail cards as where they're going. So it was interesting to see Kobe's almost like tripled in price. Curry has. Messi just hit a new high with $1 million 2004 Mega Crackers, I believe, the PSA 10. So you're seeing all these GOATs of different sports really just reaching new heights on grail cards.
So you're talking the GOAT chase along with the macroeconomic situation right now in the world. So there's one of the answers for you, Ken. Chris, did you have any thoughts on that?
No, I'll pass. Thank you.
Yeah, right.
Let's go. I only have 5 charts ready to go here.
Right.
Okay, so here's how I want to start. All right, and this ties back into Mike and the points that the previous guest was making, and I think there's actually a nice through line here. So let's start here. Let's start what Mike Petty just said, and I want to give a shout out to Skeppy, who messaged me with a really interesting product idea for Card Ladder, which was, what if we offer the ability to measure the price of cards in the denomination of gold rather than USD or the various other currencies that we offer. And I don't know if we'll be implementing that too soon. It is something that I'm bringing back to Josh and to Christina to discuss. But in the meantime, here's some quick back of the envelope math to see how cards have done compared to gold in the last year. So over the last year, the price of gold, I'm looking at a 1-year price chart of it. It's up 39%. And the Card Ladder 50 index over the last year is up 22%. So if we price cards in gold, cards have gone down in the last year. If we bring up the price of Bitcoin over the last year, it has increased 83%. So cards are going way down if we were to price them in Bitcoin. If we were to price cards in the S&P 500, that is up almost 17% over the last year. So the Card Ladder 50 index is slightly outpacing the S&P 500. But when you factor in fees and different tax rates that apply to different classes and how collectibles are taxed, it's probably almost a wash. So and then we have to look at the decreasing purchasing power of the US dollar in real terms within the U.S. economy, and then also compare it against how its devaluation is actually accelerating vis-a-vis foreign currencies. And I think you have the perfect storm. You almost have the recipe for explaining most of the fluctuation in the card market over the last year, or at least you could use that as a model, just how the purchasing power of the dollar has declined quite precipitously. And Karvin was pointing out the Asian market component here and how their currencies haven't experienced the same within the calendar year of 2025. Those currencies haven't suffered the way the US dollar has, either on their own terms or compared to the US dollar. So I think you can really look at that. I think there's a lot of macro here that can explain some of the price stuff that's going on.
First of all, welcome Josh Adams to the show, everybody, of 90s Auctions. Their auction ends tomorrow night on 90sauctions.com. Secondly, so far, maybe comment of the night from Christina's PC says, I love learning of team call agenda items during Sports Cards Live. That's what we do here. We create work for people in other companies. Very, very fun comment. Thank you, Chris, for all of those reasons for the market moving. I'm not really going to add anything because I think you guys did a better job than I could on it. Josh, we're talking about what's moving the market, what moved it to where it is. Do you have any thoughts on it outside of goat chasing and the macroeconomic conditions?
No, Chris is right. I think a lot of it has to do also with, Bitcoin's been going up a lot the past couple of years, and I think a lot of people take money out of there and put it in cards. At least I've seen that, especially at that show last week in the West Coast. It was in a bigger space and it was just as crowded. So maybe, I don't know. Everything's hot. Everything's going up for now, and then it all comes crashing down, hopefully, so we can buy more.
Well,
Hi,
someone
Karvin.
in the chat said it's everything's a cycle. It's gonna cycle as they do, and I believe that myself as well. So, well, thanks guys for those thoughts. So Kenwood's second part of the question though was, how long do you guys think the market will last? And that's really tough to answer, I think, because it's tough to say, but kind of feels like it could be a high point right now, although that's based on what we saw in the past. And with this new big sale and all of the mainstream media attention that is getting, and what Brent, who works at Fanatics Collect, deep value investor, said earlier in the night was that his phone's been off the hook since that happened, with people looking to deploy more capital into cards. This might not be a high point. This might be a watershed time. This might be the like a takeoff point to the next level. I don't know. Like, I'm kind of good. For me personally, I'm good either way. If it's a takeoff point, my cards that I have will go up in value. It'll be harder to buy cards. If the prices come down, I'll buy more cards. I'll be happy. So I don't know. Karv, do you want to jump in with something on the longevity of this current upswing?
Why does it matter if you're a collector?
Okay, but the question is how long?
No, but all I'm saying is that it's always a booming market for a collector. We want to acquire, right? So whether it goes up, like it's like buying stocks. The best way of buying stocks, as everyone says, is that you constantly, just every week, constantly invest, right? So if we're, as a collector, you want to collect grails, you want to collect your players, you just constantly buy, no matter what price it's at. That's the way I look at it. Like, I mean, unless you want to cash out at the height, which everyone always has. This is the FOMO that I talk about, right? I'm going to lose out on how many dollars because I don't sell my cards. Well, if you want to cash out and you're making a profit, then cash out. There's never, like we said.
I agree with you. I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's been my behavior all the way through, all the way going back in time through the pandemic and everything. I was buying cards at the peak, and I bought a Jerry Rice PMG Red. I'd probably lose half the value if I were to sell it today, but I don't really care because I'm not selling it today.
Right.
Perfect world. I didn't buy it and I bought it now, and I had an extra $5,000 in my pocket. Sure. I did the same thing with my Willie Mays 51 Bowman rookie card. Bought that at a peak. If I were to sell that now, I'm going to lose money. I love the card. I'm okay. And I'm still confident in the long-term financial return on a card like that when I have to sell it.
Right. And this is what I'll say. If I could predict marketplace, I would be owning a lot of Exquisite cards, right? I don't own any big Exquisite cards, no Grail cards, right? At the end of the day, if we knew, we would be like Biff in Back to the Future, like having mansions and sky rises and casinos, right? I'm not there. I still have a mortgage and I have to support my family. So I can't predict it for you. I wish I could, because I'd be doing pretty well if I could.
Well, we've had a few other people in the chat chime in, so I'm going to run through some comments. We'll get to that one. Dan's Vintage here says, never dream or strive. Why even live? Couldn't agree more. Greg Cohn says, used to think the hobby was a discretionary income ecosystem. It isn't that anymore. Yeah, that makes sense. Jeremy M finally made it in. Good evening. Good evening to you, Jeremy. Good to see you. Victory Investments. Sean says, Karvin, please talk about the future of game use patch autos with Fanatics right now. Seems the closest thing to Exquisite is Topps Dynasty. You think that's where they will go with baseball and football? Karv, you want to take that one? I'm going to take it off the screen, so make sure have you read it?
Yeah, I read it.
Okay, what do you want? Can you give us an answer to Sean's question?
Well, Dynasty has always stated, just like Flawless, that they use game used patches. So let's hope that Topps will stick to their guns and focus on game used. So I think that's probably going to be the likely answer, is that Topps will be implementing more game use in that sense. And is Dynasty going to be their go-to brand at this point? At this point, I would say yes, until they come up with something else or something different that they want to do. But I would say Dynasty is their go-to brand. That's the brand for baseball, for F1, for soccer. So, and it's very limited, and it's a one card pack with game used and autographs, hard sign autographs.
He also says this, I think the current market boom is much more real in 2021 before apps like Card Ladder verifying sales manipulation was much more rampant. Dan's Vintage says 2020 was more about the speculative players, Zion, Luka, Ja, etc. This is in answers to Ken Wood's questions from earlier. Gennady says, but also look at guys getting involved into the hobby like Tom Brady, Kevin O'Leary. These are all reasons, I think. Zach Swisher says education is, this is again, why is the market booming? Education, GOATs versus prospects, consolidation. No one mentioned that one yet. And the repacker competition. Yeah. Greg Cohn says maybe it was always undervalued. People with real money and media connections took notice. Could be. Rugs Capital says it's a market. It'll cycle. I was referring to that before. LCG says sports has become the apex of pop culture. Look at the value of all major league franchises. It's not the relative return, but the absolute return in billions. So the whole ecosystem, the whole hobby ecosystem, sports ecosystem is on a heater right now, I think you could say. Chris, what do you think? No,
Yeah,
it's the same. Sorry, I was just gonna say, I'm asking you the same question I just asked you. So let's switch it up. Are you ready to switch it up, guys?
No, can I just get one more thing in on this topic?
No, we're switching it up. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Okay.
Overruled.
This was the sparking in my brain as you guys were talking, and my mind was running wild. So, all right, I'll make this quick. In political polling, when pollsters want to find out the sentiment of the voters, they don't ask the voter, "Who are you voting for?" Because voters are prone to be biased. They think that if they give a certain result, maybe they'll be prejudiced against by the pollster, or they want to influence the way the poll looks. But they've had much more success asking respondents, who do you think your neighbor is voting for? They found that they will be much more honest if they're describing what other people think rather than asking them to describe their own mindset. Same thing in the hobby. To get or one way to wrap my mind around where is this momentum headed, where might this market be going, I would ask each person on the stage, I would ask every person in the chat, don't tell me how you think this market is going or what you think if we're, if there's going to be a big bull run or if we're going to crash. Tell me what you think your best collector friend thinks. So survey the collectors that that are in your group and tell me what their sentiment is. Are they very bullish? Are they very optimistic? What is the sentiment right now in the hobby? Are people starting to become more cautious? Are they starting to calm down? Are they looking at this as a profit-taking opportunity? Gauge the sentiment of fellow collectors and gauge the sentiment of the market as a whole. I think that would be a really good indicator to me of where this thing might be headed.
I wonder what they would say. It's the difference there, Chris, that comes into my mind is that, well, you're speculating in both questions or both topics, but in one of them you're speculating forward, and the other one you're just speculating kind of. So, yeah, you might have some insights into one, but it'd be interesting to hear and to see if that's correct. I don't know, but thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing those insights, those thoughts. I wanted to go back to the big card sale because we have Karvin with us now, and it's interesting that like the modern hobby should be celebrating that the record holder is a modern card. The vintage hobby might want to get that title back. It's kind of fun when you think of it that way. But Karvin was the inventor of the brand Exquisite. And Karv, it's kind of neat that a card that, now I don't know if you worked on the brand that year, but it's still, that card came out of a brand that was conceived in your head. That's kind of neat. No one else can say that right now. Even the guy whoever invented, I can't remember the guys from Topps who invented who was the president of Topps or who invented the mantle card sort of thing. Seiberger, thank you.
Seiberger, yeah.
Seiberger, long gone, right? Seiberger's gone. Whoever was head of the Imperial Tobacco Company or the Tito 6 cigarette companies. I know they weren't the Tito 6 cigarette, but the cigarette companies, those guys are long gone. For the first time ever, we have the guy who invented the brand that card was from. And that's pretty damn cool. So what's it like, Karvin, knowing that you see these headline, you see this headline, you saw that card sell for a record-breaking amount, 12.9 million, beat the mantle at 12.6, and that might not have happened if you didn't come up with that brand when you did 20 something years ago. How does that feel?
I think it's a win for modern day card collectors, number one, and number two, it's actually a win for the hobby, because one thing that sometimes I feel like we want this hobby to be a very small community because we can buy cards and we can maneuver in this space, but with all these people, all these athletes coming in, now you got Kevin O'Leary coming in, you got all kinds of billionaires buying into the hobby. But the one thing about any type of businesses or social media is acquiring followers, acquiring community members, right? If we have 10 people in this little hobby of ours and 6 people leave, we only have 4 left. The more that we acquire in terms of part of the community, the more robust our sports card hobby becomes, and it becomes more exciting. It becomes part of culture now, instead of just, oh, this little hobby I have, I don't want to show it to anybody because everyone ridicules me, right? So that's why I think it's a win for the hobby, because I think everyone can show off their cards, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to have a $12.9 million card, or you don't have to have a PSA 10 52 mantle, right? You can have a base card or something and get excited about it. It's part of culture. It's part of something that, number one, the hobby is not about the cards. The hobby is about our community. The cards is basically a medium for us to build our community and build friendship and relationships. At the end of the day, when the day that, I know Spinatron always calls them coffin cards, or cards that we hodl and diamond hands and all this stuff. We're not taking the cards to our graves, but we take our relationships and our memories of each other to the graves. So that's one thing that's really important, that the more people we get to meet, the more people that it impacts other people's lives. And also our collection becomes our legacy that we can pass on to our kids or to our friends, right? It's a great feeling. It's flattering, the fact that, I created this brand, but at the end of the day, it's Upper Deck that created the brand with, even Greg, he was involved in when we first brought up the whole Exquisite brand, or the OG name of UD Black, right? Greg was there. So I think all the stuff that we're talking about is that, it's a boon for the hobby. I know that everyone says, oh no, it's not. Look, don't be ashamed about this card that we all can't afford. Celebrate it. The one thing that I will say is that the fact that it's a PSA 6 makes me kind of like, just gives me chills. And the reason being for that is that because this is a true 101 card. There's no parallels. There's no PSA 9 and PSA 6 and PSA 8. It's a 101 card, right? And I think if you look at my IG post, I looked at all the Exquisite cards in terms of dual logomans. That is the nicest design. Add the fact that you had the gold and white, you had the gold logoman, which was unique, was the 50th anniversary, the 96, I think it was 96.7 logoman. And also that color matches with the card design. Yes, it doesn't match up with the Kobe logo man, which is the 3 colors, the red, blue, and white. But still, I think it's just it's a great, and the autographs are bold. And you also have those little tiny logo mans that have that almost opaque layer that really accentuates the card. I remember seeing when Shine was showing off his collection and he showed off his LeBron Michael Jordan, and I had to do like multiple takes looking at that card. I go, man, I don't even remember this card at all. This is a really nice looking card. So for me, out of all the dual logomans that we've seen in Exquisite, it's the best in class. If you feel that dual logoman is the case, now everyone will always question, why is that the only Kobe LeBron? Kobe MJ, my mistake, right? Well, number one, a lot of people that when we used to do Kobe and MJ, people complained to us. Kobe collectors were Kobe collectors. MJ collectors were MJ collectors. A lot of people didn't like duals. And I think ever since Kobe, unfortunately, the accident, he's been immortalized. He's ascended into a level where other players are. So in a sense, he's the Laker GOAT now because of immortality now. So I think that a lot of collectors now accepted Kobe being on there with Jordan. And then we hear more about the memes of Jordan, MJ crying at the funeral and everything. So I think Kobe had a cultural impact for a lot of baby boomers / millennials. And now we're finding out that they're like if there's one guy I'm going to collect in the 90s, it's probably going to be Kobe. So
lots of great stuff there, Karvin. The thing that stuck out to me the most, though, is that I realized that you do not consume the Chris Hoge cast, because the card is actually, as I think Chris described on one of his episodes, it's not a one of one, Karv. It's a one of one of one of one. And if you'd watched the Hoge cast, you would know what I'm talking about. So, Chris, you have a beef with Karv. Not trying to cause beef here, but Chris, why don't you explain what one of one of one of one really means? Because I thought that was quite insightful.
First of all, there's a great Twitter. First of all, Karvin has listened to the Hogecast too, but maybe I put him to sleep. He fell asleep by the time he got to that part. That would be understandable. Second of all, there's a gentleman on Twitter named Steven Benzel who coined the phrase one of one, which is when you have a one of one, but it's the only one of one of that particular card. Okay, because sometimes you have one of one, like with Prism, you have a Prism Black, you have a Prism Nebula, you have multiple one of ones. But he's talking about a situation where you have a one of one of one. And then I added a fourth to make it a one of one of one of one of one. And the fourth one is that this card is not only the only one of one of its type, it's not the only one of one of this particular card, it's the only one of one of its particular type. It's the only dual Logoman autograph of these two guys to exist. So now we add the fourth one.
It's a one of one of one of one.
I think I alluded to that. That's why I said MJ.
It's okay. It's okay, Karvin. I did, but I do want to. You very modestly dodged my question, which is okay. But I want to give you some flowers here, Karv. I mean, it's like I said, no other creator of any of these record-breaking cards have ever appeared on Hobby Content. You're the first. I think we can fairly say you're the first creator of the brand of a card that holds the record for the most expensive ever sold publicly at auction. You're the first to appear on Hobby Content. So I don't know, it's just, you're the first to appear in this era of the hobby. So it's kind of neat. Like, I don't know, if that were my creation, I'd feel like I had an extra pep in my step sort of thing. Does it give you any pride? I know you don't, unfortunately, like someone said, you don't get any of the royalties from that. It's no. But does it make you proud, or does it give you any sense of accomplishment that you didn't already have? Let's say, does it elevate that at all for you?
Well, of course. I mean, I think every one of us loves being part of the community and having fandom, right? It's hard to say that we don't enjoy that. We do. Like, all of us have, you have all your sponsors, you have your guests, people look up to you, right? Same as Chris. I mean, for who he is as a gold collector of MJ, right?
I'm 6'6", Karv. They look up to me because I'm 6'6".
Unless you're with Justin, then he's looking down on you.
I love hanging with Justin. I love it. Love looking up at
people. You know what the funny thing is, that all this talk and seeing all the news and about the cards and what it's sold for and who bought it, I was like, that's why I had to do a post like a day later or 2 days later to talk about the card itself. I think the card is impactful when you look at the card and how beautiful that card is. And despite being a 6, this is what I will say about being 6. For me, it's not creating a card to grade at a 10 level. If I do that and the card doesn't look nice, I don't want that card. And the other thing about it is that, as everyone says, Exquisite or a lot of Upper Deck brands have bold signatures. Well, back in the day, we had to do an archival process. Well, by having that archival process, grades will go down as a result. But what's more important, is it the sustainability of the autographs and having bold autographs 20 years later, or is it having grades, higher grades? And we as a team said, well, I had to push the team a little bit. People did not like me for saying that. But the thing is that we want the sustainability of the cards, because the first day I walked into Upper Deck, I walked into the showroom of trading cards, and I noticed every single trading card, because it's under those bright lights, was fading autographs. And that's frustrating to see. To see that these autographs are fading, and then you don't even have an autograph, or you have an autograph that's not bold. So as we change the whole process, is that to get the bold autographs. There's no easy path to travel, right? To get to a card that we think that can last for 100 years or something like that. I mean, we can't test it. We can't test 100 years unless we can accelerate the years. So the object is to how do we preserve these pieces for the future? And
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Autograph integrity, quality over the grade all day long. A card like this, the grade doesn't matter. I think people recognize. You don't have to think trashed, of course. Trashed, it's not going to be interesting. Folded in half and destroyed, no one cares. But the card presents very well. We're going to take Dan's vintage advice where he says, when does Josh get to speak? A lawyer is tortured by this length of silence. So with that, no, Josh, I want to get your thoughts on the sale at $12.9 million, and get you to weigh in on the fact that it's not a vintage, because you're a dust lover just like I am. We love the old dusty cardboard. What do you think about the fact that a dusty card doesn't hold the title anymore?
It's all right. I mean, it never really. Okay, this is Karvin high. No offense. It didn't really mean anything to me. Like $12 million, cool. It's a card that Matt and Kevin O'Leary bought. Like, okay, Kevin O'Leary's not really a collector. My question I have, though, after thinking about this for a week is, how come this card, of all sales of all cards that ever happened, this card drew out like the most passionate and like the vitriol and like very antagonistic Instagram posts, social media posts about who bought it, why it went for so much, and nothing but the grade, thank goodness, because it's just like Chris said, it's a one of one of one of one. I think there might be another one in there. But how come when a Wagner sells for over $1 million, and by the way, the first PSA 1 Wagner sold for $1 million a couple years ago, 2019. No Wagner has ever sold for less than the previous sale. How come with this sale for this card, you get all these social media people proclaiming this is the golden age of cards, this is a new thing, now we're in the spotlight, when you've had just as big of a sale for, I would argue that the Wagner is a much more iconic card than this card. And again, it's no offense to Karvin at all. It's a really cool card. I think it's neat. I just never got into the Logoman thing. But how come this card draws out such a passionate response from everybody? That's what I still can't understand why. And I'd love to hear people's thoughts.
Well, I'm just going to lead off and say I think part of it has to do with the fact that it's not a vintage card. And it's a card that people aren't used to seeing. People have seen cards on the news for decades and decades, and they've always looked like vintage cards. And all of a sudden, this is something new to people who aren't following the market like we are, so cool, aren't in the hobby like we are. I think that's part of it. I don't know the answer, but I think I think part of that is why it's getting so much attention. As for the vitriol and some of the people in the hobby who are, I think that was part of your question, was why are there these posts on Instagram even kind of being negative about it?
Yeah.
And was that a part of your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think it's cool. I mean, I think it's a great card.
And to that, I think it's just because it's something different. It's again, it's just not a vintage card. It's a new card, and people aren't. Yeah, we'll get you 1 sec, Carv. And I think people are just turned off. Carv, what are you thinking?
So let's rewind the whole timeline. Let's go back to 1991 when Bruce McNall was the big coin collector, and he bought that PSA 8 Honus Wagner with Wayne Gretzky. That was its moment. So we've known this card for 30 plus years now. And I think that's part of the reason. And it's also like Honus Wagner, we don't know a lot of the history behind who he was. Great player, iconic player, turn of the century. But at the end of the day, all of us watch Michael Jordan. All of us watch, Kobe. And I think part of culture and part of lifestyle brands, like what are the most popular basketball shoes out there? So sneakerheads are buying, are looking at it. Sports people are looking at it because Air Jordans and Kobe's, the proto Kobe's and the Grinches and all that. Those are the most iconic shoes at this moment. This is the Kobe's and Jordans. So I think that's part of the reason is that everyone gets to talk about not a card of a player that not the masses have watched, but more so, the now everyone's like, oh, it's Air Jordan. I might not watch Air Jordan, but at least I have the shoes. I have his apparel, right? Wayne Gretzky, I mean, in my mind, if you look at like complete players and dominate the sport, Wayne Gretzky is probably number one amongst everything for what he done. But at the end of the day, it's hockey, right? He's always wearing a helmet. They're playing on ice, and it's kind of cold out there, as everyone always says, but even though it isn't, right? And those are all the factors, right? I think MJ and Kobe is part of culture now today. and a part of lifestyle brands. And I think that's part of the reason why all of a sudden this card being made such a big deal to people, because everyone watched him play. So that's what I would say in regards to that. Now, in regards to being proud of a moment, when Chris Hoge told me that he was collecting 101s and he bought what he thought was the first ever card that I created, that brought me even more joy. Just the satisfaction, because Chris always said, I'm never going to collect your stuff because number one, it's too pricey. And number two, it's not playing days. So when he said that he bought something that he thought was one of my cards, I was floored. I shed a tear. I shed a tear for Hoge to buy one of my cards, and hopefully that won't be the last one. Hopefully he'll buy other ones, because he does buy RPAs, he does buy autograph patches. So we'll see if he ventures down that path. So that's what I hope.
Okay, no, good. And I love how you rewound and went back to the Wagner, because I remember when that Wagner news came out, McNall and Gretzky bought that card together. And it was $451,000, I believe, if I remember the number correctly. Like, that's been in my brain for all these years. And at that point, I think that was the first I ever heard of that card, was then. Oh, what is this thing? And I think, and it was said someone said in the chat too. Oh, right here, Linda's first says, the Wagner is way more iconic, of course. Most people didn't even know this card existed before this auction. Well, most people didn't even know the Wagner card existed before the Wagner auction. I was a kid collecting cards, and I didn't. Josh?
That's a lot for a trimmed card, right? $8 million, whatever it sold for, is a lot for a trimmed card. So, and this one's not trimmed, so there's another thing. Yeah. No,
fair. A couple of comments I want to run through here. This one from Perk. This came in. This is 15 minutes ago, but talking about the market where it is. He mentions the Skeens debut patch, the mantle, the Kobe MJ. It all brings attention and interest to the hobby, and that's terrific for us as far as I can see. B Pencil says, since Tom Brady came into the hobby, my friends don't make fun of me as much for collecting. We have Michael Kadich in the chat, everybody. He is MK Sports Cards on Instagram, everybody's favorite 90s football collector, and he just is happy to be here. Good to see you, MK. Rocco says, am I dreaming, or didn't Jeremy Lee have this exact same conversation in 2021? I said, Rocco, you must have just got here. I said I feel deja vu. I'm feeling deja vu right now. So yes, we did. Stephen M says it drew more of a passionate response because it included players from our era that we saw play. I think that's a part of it. Thorson says, why? Because the card doesn't need to be 100 years old to be cool. That is why. I don't know if that's the sole reason why, Thorson, but I think that's a fair point. Victory Sean says, to Josh's point, I would say 80 to 90% of the hobby had never even seen or heard of the 101 before the sale. So similar comment as before. Mostly only hardcore basketball guys knew it existed. Comes from nowhere, breaks a record. A bit of a repeat comment, but yes, still holds true. And Courtside Investor Podcast says, the spotlight is also a product of a buildup towards the sales. The two Kobe Logomen, the LeBron Exquisite out of 23. Ironically, the parties involved in the buildup were the eventual buyers of the Logoman. That's an interesting end to that comment right there, which brings us back to some of the comments we had at the top of the show when Joe was on, before any of you guys were on, about the sale itself and the motivation behind the sale, the mindset of Kevin O'Leary and Shine 150, whose name is Matt. I don't know what his, does anyone know?
Allen. Matt Allen.
Matt Allen. So what do I call this guy? Do I call him Matt Allen or do I call him Shine? What's the, even Kevin O'Leary doesn't know. He calls them both too when he refers to him. He says his name's Matt, but they call him Shine. He says, so what are we supposed to call? What do I call him? I literally don't know what to call this guy.
No comment.
Pick what you want, right? Okay. But back to that, Josh, I'm going to go to you on this one. What do you think? And we're speculating, but if you've listened to Kevin O'Leary talk about it, he doesn't seem to be that interested in the card. Kevin O'Leary likes, I can hear his voice from Shark Tank. Money, he says, money. I want the money. When am I going to see my money? I can't imagine him not saying this to his syndicate colleagues when they were talking about this card. I bet he said to Shine, okay, I'm going to call him Shine. That's what comes up. He must have said, Shine, when am I going to see my money? So, Josh, what do you think? Is he in it for the money or does he care about cards?
He's in it for the money. I try not to listen to Kevin O'Leary, so I haven't heard him talk about this card. But the other thing I don't understand is why everyone thinks now this is going to have like a trickle down effect on like other cards. Because I don't see the correlation, frankly. Because it's not like people that bought this card are now going to be buying other things like, tangentially related to a dual logo man, one of one.
Well, there was one of the responses came earlier in the night when Brent Deep Value was in the chat, and he said that he works at Fanatics Collect, and I think he's in private sales there, and he said that he's been getting a lot of calls from people since that sale, telling us that people want to invest money, deploy capital into sports cards. We saw it, that's why this is not it's a comp. I think, Chris, it's a comp, right? It's a comp.
It's a price that was printed, but I do think we should investigate. Okay, so just like the word fan is short for fanatic, and we never really think about that, the word comp is short for comparable. And is there a comparable for this? Or is this more like a home, like you have this massive mansion that's that maybe isn't really a comp for any home surrounding it? So I don't know if it's a price that was printed. It's a data point that exists. Is it a comp? I don't know. What are we comping it to?
Well, no, I guess I take what you said makes complete sense to me, and I feel the same way. But what I mean is this sale going to go down in the comp archives that you at Card Ladder really do are the stewards of? I go to the sales history. It's going to show up there. That's what I mean. Like,
yep, it's in there. It's definitely it's a price realized.
It's a price realized. It is as far as we know, it appears to be a legitimate arm's length sale between two arm's length parties with an intermediate auction company in between. And so I believe it is a comp that is in the record books now. But exactly what Chris was saying, and yes, Linda's first says it. It's an outlier. I completely agree. It's an outlier of a comp, and it's not going to really mean much down the road unless more and more cards more and more dual logo men start to sell for over $10 million. So sorry, you sidetracked me, Chris, with the price. So I kind of forget where I was even going with this right now. Can you help bring me back? No,
I've got a different take.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. Have your take while I try and get back to where I was.
Well, so I think this conversation is revolving around how do we interpret this price. And I think that the Skeens sale is instructive here. That was the most overt instance of a purchase being revealed as largely a marketing campaign that was part of a broader vision for transforming a large corporation's offering. And what I mean by that in specific is that Dick's purchased that Skeens and then it put it on display. And now it turns out that Dick's is entering into selling sports card products. And there's a very clean connection point there. And that's, in hindsight, I'm sure Dick's would have paid much more for the exposure and the reach that they got by virtue of purchasing that card to raise awareness among our specific demographic of card collectors that they are now offering a product that we might be interested in. In terms of a marketing spend, that $1 million went a really, really long way. In terms of, does that reflect what the Paul Skeens card would be worth in a market consisting strictly of end users that want to own the card and don't have a secondary marketing purpose for it? That's a different question. And then that's a component that's present using the architecture of that mental model or of that business model with the announcement of this company Secure that as Kevin O'Leary called them, the syndicate that these three are developing, advancing, and promoting. There's that component is part of the price. It has to be part of that analysis. Not only because the Skeens gave us the framework to do it and because of how well that worked out for Dick's, but also because now when this card was became a headline that discussion has been injected into it. And I'm reading his Instagram story post that talks about it, and it's very instructive. If you really listen to what he's saying and what he's writing, he says, normally I would win a card like this on auction and keep it hidden until the new year at a minimum, but this is an entirely different situation. And then he introduces his relationship with his business partners, and he says, we purchased this card together with our new company Secure and one other business, which we will be announcing later at some point. We will be building out a strong collector advisory board of special collectors around the world. So there's this integration of messaging surrounding a business, and as a calling card, if their goal is to sort of build this network of collectors who want to focus at the highest end, I'm not sure what the company does, but if I can have the liberty to sort of interpret what's going on here based on that the public messaging, if that's what's happening, I mean, this card is serving a secondary purpose besides being a collectible piece. It's also a calling card now. There's a double entendre for you. It's a sports card and a calling card that's network building, that's launching a business, and so forth.
Good points. Really, it makes a lot of sense to me that, like Dick's bought the skeins as a marketing expense, most likely. They don't need to sell that to make money. That's they're going to get other ROI on that expenditure. Maybe the Secure company with Shine and O'Leary and the other gentleman whose name I don't remember, and whoever else is involved, maybe it is, like you said, a calling card for that, and an investment that will pay dividends in other ways. The sale itself, we call, it's funny how now I'm thinking to myself, the comp, like it's not even a sale, it's a comp in mind. The word comp is just dominating the hobby airwaves lately. But what I was going to get into before was the motivation, and you addressed it, Chris, but the motivation for the purchase, what was it? Like, do we think that they wanted to break the record, or would they have been as happy? I know last week on the show, we would not have been as happy if the sale came short of the record. We wanted to see the record broken for our own personal enjoyment that night. But does anyone here think that they wanted to break the record? And there's a comment, Linda's first, says, kind of suspicious that it sold for just enough to break the record. Maybe it was just a coincidence, or maybe it was something else. I don't know. Josh, you're shaking your head. Speak. What do you think?
I'm a natural skeptic. I don't believe there are any coincidences, especially with an auction house like Heritage. So no, I don't think it was a coincidence. It just ticked right over the finish line. So that's all I got to say. Interesting comment. Chris, have you thought about that it really, we went from 12.6 to 12.932 for the record.
Absolutely. Here, let me say this. I'm going to present two headlines to you. United States wins silver medal at Olympics. United States wins gold medal at Olympics. Which one of those headlines grabs you more? Or here, let me make it a little more. Let me make it a little more on point. Saturday Night featured the second highest selling sports card of all time, behind the Mickey Mantle, versus Saturday Night featured the highest selling sports card of all time. It's so much simpler and more direct and a better headline.
So what you're saying then is that the headline is better for the buyers because they are looking for other reasons. They're going to get other benefits out of spending the money, and having the record is going to help them, because the difference between the two headlines is that in one of them, you're not spending any money. The other one, the headline is only driven by the amount of money you're spending. The other one is driven by how competitive you are, how good you are at your chosen sport. Kind of different. But is that what you're saying? Because I have to draw that inference from what you said, that it has to do with their other business interests, or however they're going to use this card to their benefit, besides just selling it for a profit down the road.
Absolutely. And think about this, right? When the price was at $7 million, we still have $6 million to go here before we set the record. But when that price got to 12.5, the incremental marketing value of that card just going a few $100,000 more to become the first highest sale, versus if it would have been relegated to second status at 12.5, the value to that extra bid or two or whatever it took is worth way more than it was in nominal terms. That was a multi-million dollar bid that actually was only worth $100,000 to push it over the top, measured in terms of marketing and public awareness value.
I think O'Leary said that they have other cards in this syndicate fund. And so is there any thoughts that by pushing this card into the stratosphere it went, being the record holder, was there any motivation by the buyers to pay this amount to help accrete value to their other holdings in their fund. That's kind of where my mind goes a little bit, just as a, asking the questions. I'm not being accusatory. I don't know, but our minds go in these directions. So you're not on mute, Chris, I don't think. So what do you think?
I'll weigh in really quickly and then I'll pass the mic so I stop sucking all the air out of this discussion.
We'll go to you, Karv, next.
I think that there is 100% a psychological spillover effect. I think personally, I saw a pretty firm cap on the price of any basketball card as being around $5 million. And I was pretty firm in my belief that that's what the market would bear at the very highest end of the very best basketball card. And then this sale almost tripled it. And so there's a psychological phenomenon here of what's possible has been changed. What I believe is possible has to be reconfigured now because of this social proof. So I do think that there is reason to believe that there will be a spillover effect, that other buyers will expand what they think is possible for cards too, and maybe they might be willing to pay a little bit more for other ones. I think that's possible. But I think there's a whole other side to this too, which is that, when cooler heads prevail and things mellow out a little bit and people go back to, getting a little more picky about what they're willing to pay, that this sale might just end up being an outlier and that it doesn't actually have any enduring effects on the price of other stuff.
What about the underbidder? Any theories on the underbidder here? I mean, to me, that's really interesting. That's an identity that I would really like to know. And another conspiracy theory out there is that the underbidder was working with the bidders, or that they were on part of the same team to get the price there. That I've heard that theory out there. I'm not confirming or denying. I have no clue, but I think it's worth. We can't explore because we're never going to find out. So is it worth discussing? Maybe for the sake of content and discussion, and other people are thinking the same thing. Josh, you have thoughts on that? You took yourself off mute, so I assume you might.
I have thoughts, but I don't, they're more just assumptions and, conclusions based on historical events that probably I shouldn't make assumptions without knowing any facts. So I would say we don't know who the underbidder is. There's a good, we don't know who the underbidder is. I will say, without any further comment, Heritage in their auction rules says people that work for Heritage can bid in items in the auction. So draw whatever conclusions you want. I'm not saying anything specific.
I would have to think that a guy of Kevin O'Leary's sophistication and success would know that, and Shine would know that too, and know that they're getting into that. And maybe maybe that benefits them. Maybe it's like, hey, put in a bid. We want to pay more. It's within the realm of possibility. I'm not saying it happened. I'm not accusing. I don't know. We're just talking about what could possibly be going on out there based on the platform and its structure and the way it operates. Karv, do you have any thoughts on the underbidder angle?
Not really. I mean, I do know that someone did reach out to me and asked about the card, and they were not big collectors in terms of understanding the collectibles world, but it was someone with a lot of money. That's all I'll say. And they were planning on bidding on the card. So that did happen. I can't say, any information out of that. I don't know. I was just asked about the background on that card. So that did happen. What I will say is that one thing of note, like when you buy a card and if you really think it's a best in class, doesn't it always get overpaid? Doesn't people always overpay for it as a premium? That's always the case. Whether it's a marketing play to set the new record or not, we never understand why it's getting so much attention and why people are paying so much for it, right? When the PSA 10 Jordans were going for $720,000 on Golden back in January of 21, we're like, wow, like that's crazy. Who would pay that much for that card, right? And I think that's what you're seeing, is that if it's a best in class type thing. I brought it up on my Instagram post back in 1987. Probably the most iconic Van Gogh piece was called the Sunflowers. Interesting that sold for $40 million in 1987, which is unheard of in the fine art world. Now that's a true one of one. It's only the sunflowers and it's a Van Gogh piece. I mean, his three most iconic paintings is probably Starry Night, his self-portrait, and the sunflowers. Well, believe it or not, that just set the new standard, right? Because that was in March. In November, the irises of Van Gogh came to auction, and it broke that record by about $800,000. So now you have, $40 million and $40 million and $800,000. Just barely broke it, but it's not even the iconic piece that broke it. So all this card did was just set the new standard of what it goes for, right? Like, for example, like we say the Mona Lisa becomes, the sunflowers. If that goes to market today, people estimate it's going to be $250 million. I would estimate that painting would probably fetch about $500 million to $750 million, if not even $1 billion, because it's considered Van Gogh's best work. If the Mona Lisa comes up, you're going to see $2-3 billion for that. Because once again, you're dealing with apex. I call them apex collectors because they're like apex predators. They want to chew everything in their path and they want to own it all. And they say, I got it. I own it. If you want this, you have to come to me and pay more than what I pay, right? So you dictate the price at that point. So this is the way that how collectors are on the top level, just like an apex predator, like a great white shark or something like that. So same thing. I mean, that's my takeaway, but that's why I posted on there like that the sunflower sold for $40 million. And at that time, the whole fine art market was going, why are these Japanese guys paying $40 million? That's 3x of any fine art sale. They just overpaid for it. Now look at what it's worth today, right?
Right.
I'm not, by all means, I'm not comparing the Dual Logoman card of MJ and Kobe versus that card, right?
We have a similar comment in the chat. I'm going to run through some comments right away here. Let's go. Jordan says, if I were the underbidder, what's another 250K or so? Which, Karv, I mean, you said you might have been talking to the potential underbidder without revealing them. Is 250K going to make or break them to keep going? You don't have to answer that, but it's a fair comment from Let's Go Jordan. DPZ, what is up, PC with DPZ? What a great time to be in the hobby. Let's Go Jordan says, here's the thing. Plenty of people that spend $100 million on art. There are plenty of people that do that. 12 million on a card is nothing. So compared, similar to what you were saying. Victory Investment says the underbidder. Oh, he knows the underbidder. His name was Mashine O'Leary. Irish guy, totally different fellow than the guys that bought the card. Rocco says, would have hated being Chris's teacher. 1 minute answer into a 10-minute diatribe. I would say would have hated being Chris's teacher because the student would be smarter than the teacher. So that's why they would have hated it. I think Hobby Champ says if Shine can bid and also O'Leary can bid, or the other partner, while all having the same intention, that would seem shady. He goes on to say O'Leary is a shady dude anyway, so I wouldn't expect ethics. I can't speak to him being shady. I don't have any idea about that. Card Fuchsia says, I have a dictionary open when Hoj is on. Bob Boozle says they don't have these types of discussions in the Labubu. Is Labubu? I haven't heard about Labubu for like 2 weeks. Did that thing come and go faster than Beanie Babies did? It kind of seems like that right now. And Chris Hayes says March 2021 equals August 31st, 2025. Yeah, it does feel very similar to me as well. Josh?
Well, hopefully later on August 31st, 2025, not, before 7 o'clock. Sorry. Just want to throw that in there.
Oh, because the 90s auction is ending tomorrow night, guys. Hey, check it out. Josh is a co-founder of 90s Auctions. We did a show here on Tuesday on the channel, doing a showcase of it. Check it out, 90sauctions.com. Go register to bid. Throw a bid his way if you want. If you like the cards, go ahead and buy a card. If not, that's okay too. All right. We're going to, I think, what do you guys, Chris, do you have anything else you wanted to talk about tonight? Any topics? I mean, we're in overtime, but I'm willing to go about 20 more minutes if you have a topic for us.
I had some callbacks to earlier stuff, but I don't want to rehash anything. And I just add topics to this file. It has hundreds. My Sports Card Live Apple Note thing has hundreds of topics.
All right. Fair. I know. Fair enough. Fair enough. Imagine if you didn't do the crossover, how like you would just be bursting with things to
you'd be falling asleep, or they'd be like, all right, guys, we're in hour 6 of overtime.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I gotta go to sleep. How about you, Josh? Anything else you wanted to talk about tonight?
I mean, same with Chris. I had like some rehashes. Like there was a lot of talk earlier about manufactured rarity. Mm-hmm. I think we talked about this a long time ago, or often. And I think that to bring that up now, and I think Joe said it earlier, it's kind of like it's code, I think, for like dusty people who want to slam on modern stuff. But manufactured rarity has been around since the beginning of card collecting. Since the beginning of time. 52 Tops. Everyone likes 52 Tops Mantle. That card is the first card of the high numbered series that was short printed because no one knew if they would buy them and actually no one bought them, so they dumped about 50 cases in the East River. So that's manufactured rarity. 33 Gaudi, they intentionally did not make the Napoleon Lajoie card. That's manufactured rarity. The Honus Wagner card, they pulled that because of a contract. That's manufactured rarity. Also, the 32 McKinley in the U.S. Carmel set, they didn't even make that card. And you had to put a whole set together in order to get like either a glove or a bat. And they didn't even make the 32 McKinley. I think there's like 4 floating around. And
are you familiar with the Bert Corbeau from 23 Patterson?
Absolutely. The Bert Corbeau is like a ghost. I think either Collect Auctions or REA sold one about 3 or 4 years ago. But one popped up, right? Like the first time in like decades. And I think it's either the Rocky Marciano or the 48 Leaf boxing. I forget which card. I think Marciano didn't even make it to the set, to PAX. They made one printing of it. There's like 5 known because Leaf pulled those. So this idea that manufacturing rarity is only something that applies to modern cards is, I think, factually incorrect. And I think it's made by some vintage collectors to kind of depreciate the value of maybe 90s and modern stuff. So I would say manufactured rarity is kind of a manufactured topic. I
like DPZ's comment here. I think it's really to the point. He says it's simple. The rarest cards of the best players will always reign supreme. Does anybody disagree with that? I mean, I think that makes sense to me. I have no interest in the Bert Corbeau because he wasn't one of the greater players. He was just a short print, a manufactured short print. But I agree with DPZ. Again, the rarest cards of the best players will always reign supreme. Makes sense to me. Carb, anything you want to get out before we get out tonight?
There's always future shows. We can always leave it for the next time.
All right. Sounds good to me. We're almost 3.5 hours in, so we're gonna wrap this up, guys. I always end the shows, especially with you, Chris, because I know you come with good ideas, and I ask you to, not good ideas, but topics. I mean, you come with topics, and we haven't been getting to them lately. We just haven't been able to get to them. There's been too many other things to talk about, hot topics. So I hope you're willing to keep on coming back, and we'll keep on trying. What do you think?
No, this is good. When the momentum of the show is so organic that topics sort of jump from one guest to the next and they evolve, and then we get here at the end and we kind of get to have the final say on these things that have developed throughout the show. I think that's the best place to be, and then it's incumbent upon the guest to come prepared but be able to comment on whatever's happening on the fly.
Attaboy. Well, you always do good at that. Jacob Dahl's past his bedtime. Mike Zier says, thanks again for having me on. It was a blast. Mike, it was a blast having you. I know the chat loved you. Thank you. Space 99 Yak with the $1.99 tip to the host says, Chris, if there was a 1/189 Upper Deck Griffey, what would that be worth? This is for you, Chris. And he's basically paying me $2 to ask you the question. Thank you, Space Yak. We're gonna give you time to answer that question. That's what if you have questions that you really want to get asked, hit the host and get them asked. But as you guys know, I'll get to your questions. Well, but Chris, over to you.
I don't know if the number on my calculator screen goes high enough for the 1/189 Upper Deck Griffey. How about that?
That's fair. That's a fair comment. I don't disagree with that one. Bob Boozle says Karvin brought that insert into the world. He should be able to take it out at any point if he wants. I love it. Linda's first. Absolutely great night. Thanks, Jeremy Guess, and all the people in the chat, the party people. Chris Hayes says, let Hoj cook. Hey, if you guys aren't yet tuned into the Hojcast, I highly recommend it. The guy is catching steam on there. At first, you think he's going to do one podcast a month. The next thing you know, he's doing 2 or 3 a week. Chris, what's the name of the channel for anybody who is not yet subscribed to the Chris Hojcast?
I think if you just type in Chris Hojcast, it'll get you there somehow.
On YouTube, everybody. On YouTube. Good night, Jacob. Dahl says, great show as always. Thank you very much. Carfucius tries to trick me. Very good one. Very good. All right, guys. Again, no Fanatics Collect show tomorrow and no Sports Cards Live next Saturday, guys. I apologize. I have an event to attend on Saturday night. And even tonight, I ducked out of an event because I couldn't do that 2 weeks in a row. So we'll be back 2 weeks from now. And there will be some other shows in the interim, but I want to thank you, Karvin. Man, something switched around. Thank you, Karvin, Hoj, Josh Adams. I want to thank Joe Poirot. I want to thank Mike Zier. And I want to thank Leighton Sheldon for all coming on tonight. It was a blast. This is fun, you guys. This is just, yes, Christina, my social calendars. It's Saturday nights. I mean, what can you do? I try to sacrifice everything to be here with all you guys I love. This is my favorite place to be. But with that, guys, thank you everybody for joining us. This episode of Sports Cards Live is now
Over.
Over.
Say it, Carv.
Over. Too bad I don't have a mic. I can do a mic drop now.
With that, thank you everybody, and good night. We will see you all again next time. Have a great week ahead and a lovely, lovely Sunday. NFL football is back. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in and being a part of the Sports Cards Live community. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and most of all, keep collecting. More great content to come. Sports Cards is a lifestyle.